Welcome to the Final Girl Podcast. This is the podcast where we discuss and analyze your favorite horror movies. My name is Ryan Turner. That's Michael. He won't let me sit on that side of the table.
You know what you did!
Look, movies like this end when the final girl kills the main bad guy and the credits roll.
Welcome to the Final Girl Podcast. This is the podcast where we discuss and analyze your favorite horror movies. My name is Ryan Turner. And with me today, that joke will make sense here in a second, I promise. With me today, I've got, you know him, you hate him, Michael Bonner. How you doing, sir?
Hey, I love being hated.
I know, right?
Almost as much as I love to be here, but I like to be hated more. So fuck you. And fuck you.
Wow, we're starting out this episode with lots of anger today.
This is your fault.
This is my fault?
You said they love to hate me, so I'm trying to let them feel love. It's weird dynamic.
Yeah, weird dynamic, regardless. I hope you guys are doing well. Yeah, we are gonna have a good episode today. I'm excited to talk about this movie. This is a film that came out when I was in high school, and I have a lot to say about the fact that this came out in 2007.
Yes,
because it's. I'm gonna say this 30 times part of this episode, but like this movie is a perfect like time capsule of millennial like culture.
Yeah. Yep, I agree.
Yeah. So the movie we're doing today, guys, is Disturbia, the 2007 Shia LaBeouf film. Which don't click away just because I said Shia LaBeouf. I promise you, he's great in this movie.
I like Shia LaBeouf.
I do too,
especially like lately. His films have been fantastic. Mm-hmm. Like I don't know if anyone saw Peanut Butter Falcon. That was a
Peanut Butter Falcon
great
was
movie.
So good.
I didn't even want to watch it. My wife talked me into it, and by the end of it, I was like, I hate this movie. It's so sad.
It's so sad. But no, it was fantastic. I think I've been a fan of Shia LaBeouf's since he was a kid, since I was a kid, back in the Even Steven days.
Mm-hmm. Holes.
Oh my God, Holes was so good. Yeah. I love Shia LaBeouf. So I'm excited to talk about this movie because I remember this movie coming out in high school, and my friends were all super hyped about it, and I was super hyped about it. So we'll talk more about that here in a minute. Let me just get through my usual jibber jabber of everything. So I know, right? So we are doing Disturbia. With that being said, guys, spoiler warning in effect as of now.
You mess that up literally every episode.
I really do. I have to stay true to my character, because
Robert Turner.
That's the joke, by the way. If you didn't get that joke, the main killer in this movie, his name's Robert Turner. So, spoilers. So yes,
you already said spoiler warning.
I did say
spoiler alert.
Yeah, spoiler alert in effect as of right now. 30 seconds ago. Today's been a doozy of a day. That's another movie I want to do on this show so badly. Tucker and Dale versus Evil.
Oh my gosh, what a fantastic movie!
I love it so much. Anyway, guys, we're going to be covering the movie in full. So if you guys have not seen the movie, go ahead, pause it, do yourself a favor, and watch it. Truly, if you're like our age, like between like the ages of 27, I would say, to about 35 or so.
I'm not 35.
I know you're
yes.
not. I'm not saying you are. I'm saying that's like the prime millennial age.
Honestly,
group, right?
I think that even the teenagers now would enjoy this movie.
No, they definitely would. But I'm saying if you grew up in like 2000, if you remember 2007, like high school age.
Yeah, very true.
Then you will definitely enjoy this film if you've never seen it. But yeah, teenagers nowadays would definitely still like this movie. It's just, this movie is soaked in millennial culture. Like, the characters also have flip phones. Kale, who is Shia LaBeouf's character, he's playing Xbox, and he's got his Xbox Live and everything. He's got a PSP. I have a note in my phone. It's just like, the PSP, bro. I haven't seen one of those in so long.
I love the PSP.
But yeah, it's a great movie. So go ahead and watch it. It's like an hour and 40 minutes. It's totally worth your time to check that out. But yeah, let's go ahead and jump into this film. Let's go ahead and just start talking about it because I got a lot to say. So this film is directed by DJ Caruso. It stars Shia LaBeouf, David Morse, Sarah Romer, Carrie Ann Moss, and Aaron Yu. who Aaron Hughes, hilarious. He's my favorite.
He is.
Like,
yeah. So one of the things about like the cast from this movie, other than like Shia LaBeouf, immediately in this, watching it now, you're gonna be like, oh, it's so and so. But like in 2007, when you watch it, like when I first saw this, I was like, oh, it's Shia LaBeouf, and that's Trinity from The Matrix. Like that's the only thing that I thought.
I've never seen The Matrix.
Get out.
I know.
Go back to that side of the table.
Go back to that side of the table. If you don't know what he's referencing, go ahead and check out the YouTube episode of this podcast because I put special cold opens in the YouTube episodes. So go check those out. Anyway, this film is based on Alfred Hitchcock's Rear Window. Now, they never officially bought the licensing for Rear Window. They just made this movie inspired by it, and there actually was a lawsuit from Hitchcock's estate suing the company. However, the case was dismissed because the subplots were distinct enough in Disturbia to not be directly stolen from Rear Window. It's just the same premise of a guy who's stuck in his house witnessing a neighbor murder someone.
Gotcha.
So
I did not know that.
That's
you not? Interesting.
Yeah. See,
I knew it was
I
it was based off of Alfred Hitchcock's Rear Window. I did not know about the lawsuit though.
Yeah, there was a lawsuit for it, but they dismissed it because they said the tone was different, the subplots were different. It was just distinct enough to be its own thing. There were similarities, but what movie in Hollywood doesn't have similarities to other movies?
That's true. Yeah. Not to mention I think Alfred Hitchcock, and then I think of Shia LaBeouf, and I'm just like, that's very different.
Very different spectrums. Yeah. It is funny though to mention that because I remember back when this movie came out, my friends and I, like I was saying in the beginning, we were hyped to go see this, and I remember thinking, and we actually talked about this. This is like the most original movie we can remember coming out around this time because. If you guys remember, if you were around this time, the early 2000s were soaked with remakes. Everything that came out was a remake. So, like, this movie being one that was original, and what we thought was original at the time, was huge. I didn't learn until, like, college, I think, that this was a remake, or not a remake, but inspired by Rear Window.
Yeah.
So, a little bit of the you know, hypeness I had for the movie disappeared during that, but at the same time, too, this movie definitely holds its own.
Yeah, and I think one of the reasons this movie was so popular too is because it takes today's culture and then dips it in horror in a way that's not just like a bloody slasher film, which is like a lot of what horror does. And if you want to keep it culturally similar, instead of it just being like The Conjuring or something else that came out in that time, you make a slasher film. This movie just dipped its toe in horror. Yeah. But like the suspense in this movie is so suspenseful. Good. Like you don't get... The tension
is so great. And I definitely agree. I think this is more borderline thriller than it is horror, but there's so much good horror aspects to it.
Agreed.
It's just not an overtly bloody slasher, you know, like what you usually get in the early 2000s.
Yeah.
So
yeah, and there's a lot of subtlety and a lot of nuance that we'll get into the movie, but like, or once we get into the movie, we'll discuss. But there is a lot of like really subtle things that they hint at that like are horror aspects, that they do use in a lot of like more traditional like psychological thrillers, not like slashers, things like that. And there's some of those, but more so the psychological aspects.
Yeah, because this movie definitely does. You do have your jump scares and, you know, and all that classic blah, blah, blah. But it definitely holds its own, like you're saying, in that horror genre being a thriller because the tension is it builds so strongly and so quickly and holds you there for so long.
Yeah, one of the other things I wanted to say about this movie, and this I wanted to mention it early because of just the way the movie's created, is it is definitely made to be viewed through the eyes of Shia LaBeouf. And I don't mean in the way that he's the main character. I mean in the way that the situations that they put him in the way that they present those situations, it's like you're also a 17-year-old boy. So, and I'll point out those examples when we get to those in the show, but there's a lot of those.
They do a great job of doing that because they literally put you through his eyes several times in the movie.
Yeah.
And speaking of him being a 17-year-old boy, I'll probably harken back to this several times in my notes. I just want to say before we get into this too thick, the characters in this movie. The screenwriters wrote these characters so well. The dialogue is on point. I remember I was watching this and I was like, these are things I would have said and did say in high school.
Absolutely.
Like during this time period, it's astounding how well they did writing these characters.
Yeah, and it's very believable. You know how when you watch a movie, or like me and my wife were talking about this. We just recently watched Ted Lasso on Apple TV Plus. If you haven't watched it, watch it. It's amazing. But we watched it, and at the end of it, we're like, I have a hard time not believing that this character is like this in real life.
Right.
But then you watch other things and interviews, and you're like, he's nothing like this. But whenever they can make you think that that's exactly how you think they are in real life and not as an actor, that's how you know they were successful. And that is this movie to a T, at least for the three main characters.
That's what I was going to say, because like you watch this movie and you know it's Shia LaBeouf, but as you watch it, he isn't Shia LaBeouf, he's Kale. And Sarah Romer is Ashley, and Aaron Yu is Ronnie. Like they do such a good job of dissolving who they really are and becoming these characters. It's amazing, and I can't give them anything but props for their acting and for the screenwriting in this movie.
Agreed. Yep.
And along with that too, I think the score and soundtrack are fantastic for this film too.
Oh, and I mean, you have to be for a good suspense and a good thriller. If the music isn't good, it's not thrilling enough. Like it's so, again, perfect time capsule. 2007. You watch this film and you were transported back to 07 because the music is iconically 2007. Like the soundtrack, the songs they picked for the movie, and then the score itself too. Like the scene where he is chasing the neighborhood kids after he steps in the flaming dog shit. The score is perfect because it's like if you were in his position in your head and you have to chase down these shithead kids who just put dog shit on your front door and lit on fire, that would be the music I want playing as I chase them down the street. So it's perfect. I love it. So enough of that. Let's go ahead and jump into the film and just start discussing it and giving us our analyzation of what we think it all means. Ooh. All right. So we open up on a lovely babbling brook, and I don't even know where the hell they filmed this at. Part of me thinks it's a green screen, but part of me also thinks, no, this is a real place. It's the movie's set in California, but I don't think that. I think I remember seeing that this was a real place because I think that they had said that there were two scenes in this movie that were completely ad-libbed and just improv, and this was one of them. The entire scene with the father was completely improvisation.
Well, they did a great job with it.
Yeah, they just said go out and fish, and they did. Your father and son go out and fish, and they did that completely improv. And that's Shia LaBeouf though. He's always been like that as an actor.
Absolutely,
so.
yeah.
And as a person, which is probably why he gets in a lot of trouble. So.
Right.
Anyway.
But the fact that that's ad-libbed and improv just makes my first note here even better, I think, in my opinion. Because the movie literally opens with Kale saying, "You think he sees us," talking about a fish. And I think it just sets the tone for the movie perfectly. Because he literally is just like talking. I know it's about a fish, but like it opens up with him saying, "You think he sees us?" And literally the entire movie, they're freaking out about, can people see me looking at them?
Yeah, that may have been scripted. I'm not sure like how much of what they said is that, but like that's almost too perfect. Like,
yeah,
because I thought the same thing whenever I rewatched it, and I was like, like because
they probably had a few lines here and there that they were like, make sure you say these things, but the rest of it, just do what you're gonna do.
Yeah, because the point of whenever I read the thing about it being ad-libbed, it was talking about how well they established the father-son relationship in that scene, and they do a very good job.
They do a great job with that, yeah.
But yeah, anyway, continue.
So, like I said, we open up on this beautiful mountainside, and they're in like this valley, and there's a stream running through it. And Kale and his father, I don't remember if they say the dad's name. Mr. Brecht, I guess, is what
Mr. Brecht. I don't remember. I'm sure they do.
Regardless, they're fishing, having good old bonding father-son time. Kale finally hooks his fish and tries to reel it in before he loses it on the line. And his dad just kind of laughs it off and says, "Come on, let's go hang out." And they just crack open a Coke and start drinking it right there in the river. And kind of had this like lovely father-son conversation. And it truly shows you, how good a relationship they do have. It sets it up perfectly, I think, for this father-son relationship, only to get completely ruined.
Well, there's also the joke too. That's what made it like so funny.
Well, like, is this the father-son moment that like Is that what you're talking about? Where he's like, "Is this that father-son moment?"
Yeah.
So I just think this movie needs this scene because first of all, it sets the plot in motion, but it also, I think, just perfectly encompasses, who Kale is as a person, because his life kind of is all about his father. And it's very apparent in that moment in the opening scene.
Right.
And so when what happens moments later where they're driving home, it makes that whole thing all the more impactful when it finally does happen. So what I'm hinting at, if you guys still have not watched the movie yet, they're heading home. Kale's driving. He's on the phone with his mom talking about all the fish they caught. And she's making a joke. She's like, "You sure you're not going to stop off and buy more like you did last time?" He's like, No, we drained the river, Mom. We drained them all. We took them all. And as they're driving, they're laughing, having a good time. And then this truck passes them on the interstate and honks at them. And Kale's kind of, "Look at this jackass, and everything." And he gets up in front of them. And as they're talking and conversing, the truck in front of them then swerves. And at that point, Kale sees a car stopped ahead of them that's got a flat tire. And he swerves to miss the car, clips the end of it, and flips their car over, landing in the middle of the road. And then it's at this point, Kale and his dad are looking at each other. They're both very injured, but they're both still okay. Kale's looking through the passenger window at this point and sees another car barreling towards them. And it smashes into his dad's side, killing his dad. And that kind of opens up the entire movie for us.
Yep. Kale gets out of his car, goes over to the other side.
And he gets down in the window and you see just his face. And it's just like...
I like how they did that.
Yeah.
Because it shows... It allows Shia LaBeouf's character to... It wasn't just like it shows him dead and then you deal with that. It makes you have to connect with the fact that his emotions in that moment, because it does set up especially probably the next 15, 20 minutes of the movie.
Oh, absolutely.
While he's dealing with the ramifications of his fractured self. You see him break. You really do. Because he realizes his father's dead in front of his face. You don't see the father, but you just see Kale just break down, and just the look on his face, he just turns to mush, essentially.
And the acting in this moment, again, I can't stress how good the acting is in this movie, but this scene especially. He does a fantastic job with that. So we fade to black, cut to title, and then we open back up again 1 year later in a high school. And again, we go from scene to scene that I just love, but like the opening scene, man, hits you right in the feels. It's a good one. But anyway, we open up in a high school, and it's been a year now, and we were in a Spanish class.
This is such a good scene. I love this so much.
And apparently the assignment is to explain, what your plans are for the summer. And so...
in Spanish.
In Spanish, yeah. And so Kale's friend Ronnie is up at the board or up the front of the class explaining what he's going to be doing. And he keeps using the word perhaps in Spanish, which sounds like kiss ass.
Yeah, quizás, I think is what it is.
It actually is, yeah.
But he says it once. Yeah. He's like...
He says it right one time, yeah.
He says, perhaps we'll go to, Vietnam or visit my family, because I think he's Vietnamese.
Something like that, yeah.
I don't mean to, not say it right, but I think it was Vietnamese. But he says he's going to go visit... Perhaps I'll go visit my family.
Yeah.
And he says, quizás, and then, the rest of the class kind of chuckles.
Because he pauses, and he realizes what he's doing.
Yeah, and then he's like... Quizás, and he keeps saying everything he says is perhaps. So it's like quizás.
He's like, perhaps I'll go to Hawaii and meet all these hot chicks. And the girls in the class like, you wish, pervert. But it's hilarious. I actually have in here, I was like, Ronnie is 100% a kid I would have in my class, and 1,000% a kid I went to school with.
Oh, yeah, 100%. I know 6 kids I went to high school with that were exactly this person.
I can off the top of my head name 5 kids in my class. My graduating class alone, who was this kid. I was actually really good friends with one of them. So it totally checks out. I remember watching this movie, and as I was watching it, I was like, yep, that's my friend Seth right there. Yep.
If I were in high school with my mentality now, that would be me. But I was too shy back then. I just wanted it to be
absolutely.
done.
Yeah, if I was who I was now in high school, that 100% would be me. Quizás. And the teacher's just sitting back in the bag. He's just like. And then after Ronnie's done with his speech, he goes to sit back down. The teacher stands up and says, in proper Spanish, perhaps I should fail you.
Yeah.
And he's just like, Okay. And then after Ronnie's done, the teacher calls on Kale. And Kale is in the back of the room with his head down, his hoodie up over his head and everything.
Yeah, he's like slouched over.
Asleep. Yeah. And so the teacher calls on him, and as a teacher, I understand not wanting kids to sleep in your class, but also as a teacher, it irritates the shit out of me the way the teacher acted in this film.
I thought the same way, and I think that I've shifted the way that I thought about this from when I originally saw it. When I first saw this movie, I thought, okay, like that kid's like sleeping in class, or maybe like that teacher's just being a dick. But then as an adult seeing this, he throws the eraser at him.
Yeah.
And then all the way up to where he talks about his dad, that's obviously like way crossing the line. But just the way he talks to him and
he's talking down to him
him
constantly, and he's trying to make him embarrassed in class. And teachers who try to embarrass their students in class should not be teachers. Your goal is not to embarrass your kid because they don't know how to do something. Your goal is to teach them how to do it, not make them feel embarrassed for not knowing it.
Yeah, and I'm definitely not a hand holder like kind of person either.
No, I don't.
But like
I don't do that
as
either,
a teacher in this scenario, I'm not trying to like get all like, oh, this is how teachers should be. But what I mean is, in this movie, this teacher puts him in a situation to where he sets him up for failure.
Exactly.
And it was just watching it then versus watching it now. I'm like, this guy's a dickhead as an adult and as a human being, and as a younger watching this, I was like, this guy's a bad teacher. Now I'm just like, fuck this guy. Like 100% this guy's an asshole.
Yeah, so teacher deserved what comes to him. But yeah, like we were saying, the teacher's like goading Kale on and on and on like this. He's like, come on. He's like, because Kale obviously has no idea what he's talking about. He didn't do the homework, and the teacher knows he did not do the homework. Mr. Gutierrez, I think is what his name is.
I think so.
Because that's what the cop's name is later on. Yeah.
Okay, yeah. It's his cousin.
So he knows he didn't do the homework, so he's just trying to embarrass him in front of everybody. And so finally the teacher's just like, tell me right now why I shouldn't fail you. And Kale doesn't really have a response to that. And the teacher walks up and he says, what would your father think? And you can just see the snap.
Another really good acting moment.
Another really great acting moment. Because as soon as he says that, Kale looks up and you just see the snap. And he's just like, boom, and just decks him.
And then jumps on his face.
Jumps on top of him and to go hit him again. And Ronnie, everyone just scatters back. It legit was like an actual fight. Like everyone just scatters back. If it had been present day, they'd had their phones out like this, recording the whole thing. But because this was the era of flip phones, no one could do that. So, but Ronnie jumps in, grabs Kale off of him and everything. And we instantly cut to a courtroom or like a little. It's not an actual courtroom. It's like a
family court session.
A family court session, yeah. And you see the bruise on the Spanish teacher's face, and it cuts over to Kale, and we get the sentence for him. The judge is explaining, you're 6 months shy of 18, which would be a year in juvie, and with your priors up to 3 years. However, losing a parent is not easy, so I'm going to cut you a break and sentence you to 3 months house arrest.
I really like this scene too, because I think just in those few words and exactly what happened, it explains. Not only it says it's been a substantial amount of time. It's been a year. Mm-hmm. In that year, he has not recovered at all. In that year, he has been just absolutely miserable.
Yeah.
And then in the fact that he's actually having more issues, and he's been in other fights and other situations, and you get some.
Just subtly says with your priors. Yeah. We don't know what those are or anything, but you can tell that year has not been good for him.
Yeah. I just really like how they set that up, because it just with so few words they explain he is just not doing well.
Right.
And they don't really need to go any further than what they do. And I like how they don't goad that situation on.
Exactly. We don't get the full backstory. We get enough to know shit's not okay. And that's all we need to know.
Yep.
So, but he is sentenced to 3 months house arrest. And the judge kind of just looks at him and says, Mr. Breck, I've cut you a break. Don't test me. And so with that, we are back home for the summer. And Kale's getting an ankle bracelet put on his ankle. And I didn't realize this was Viola Davis the first time, like back in high school, and I watched this movie a million times.
I did not know that either.
But
wow.
The parole officer, I don't know what exactly she is. But
I think
the head correction lady, that's Viola Davis, yeah.
Okay.
I realized that this time through because I hadn't. When I was in high school, I watched this movie like 100 times. I legit loved this movie in high school. But I also have not watched it since probably early college.
Yeah.
So watching it Tuesday and then obviously again today, I was like, oh, that's Viola Davis. Okay. So she's setting him up with the bracelet and kind of telling him the whole ins and outs of what the bracelet does. She has 100 yards from the server, or from the monitor, router, whatever.
It's like a modem, essentially.
Yeah. He has 100 yards from that. If you go across it, you've got 10 seconds to get back in, turn it green. It starts blinking red, or the cops will come. He says it's waterproof, it's shockproof. So don't put your foot in a bucket and try to hop across the line. It won't work and you'll just look stupid. And all these, rules and everything for it. She also tells him too, she's seen a lot of people go like crazy in house arrest. Some just after a few days. So find something constructive to do with your time. And it's at that point, she takes Kale's mom out into the living room to pay the fee, which is $12 a day. And I did the
incarceration fee. Ridiculous.
And I did the math on it, and I think for like 3 months, if we're thinking this is June, July, and August, those 3 months, it would be like $1,170 or something like that.
Absurd, but yeah.
So $12 a day for the incarceration fee. So after the mom and the correctional officer leave, the other officer in the room walks up, and he's just giving Kale the shady eye. He's giving him like the side eye and everything, and he just walks up, and Kale looks up at him, and we see his badge, and it says Gutierrez on it. And he's just like, your Spanish teacher? As my cousin. So we're just like, whew, that's not good. His officer who's assigned to his detail is his Spanish teacher's cousin.
I like that they did that, though, because like they obviously didn't need it to be that person, but it definitely made... They did, too, because there was a dynamic there between like how much he cared and versus how much he didn't care. Because if it was just his job... He would have been there on time every time, but if it was more or less than that, there was some fluctuation.
It made what happens later in the movie all that more impactful.
Yeah, absolutely.
So we have this dynamic between the cop and Kale, and it's at this point, house arrest begins. Kale is just kind of left on his own because his mom, I believe she's a realtor. So she has a day job and she's gone all day long.
Yeah.
But she says at one point I have to show like 3 different houses today. So I'm pretty sure she's a realtor.
Yeah. I like the switch though, because it's like find something constructive to do. And then it immediately goes to him playing Xbox. Like he's just sitting in a chair with like his feet propped up.
It's not one of those gaming chairs I wanted as a kid where it's like there's no legs to it. It's just like a rocking chair. It rolls.
I had one of those and it was awesome.
I always wanted one, but I never got one.
I found one secondhand because my parents couldn't afford one, but we had them. And then they ended up falling apart because I was an idiot.
Can we also talk about, though, before we get into this Xbox scene, how cool Kale's room is? It's like two rooms conjoined.
You could tell he's an only child.
Absolutely, yeah. But it literally, again, the millennial culture is seeding through this whole thing because that room is... You look at all the cartoons that we grew up with. Hey Arnold. Okay? Look at Arnold's room. And then, like, you got Kale's room and then Drake and Josh's room. Like that was the millennial dream to have a room like that, and none of us got one. That was only movie dream.
Nope. Yep, you're not wrong.
No one had a room like that, and if you did, you're a lucky bastard. But his room is amazing, and yeah, he's playing Xbox. I love it because he's playing Ghost Recon on the Xbox 360, and he's jamming his controller and like calling out all these call signs and everything. And he goes up to fire his gun or throw a grenade or something, and he gets cut off. His Xbox gets disconnected, and it tries to sign back in, and it says there's no Xbox Live subscription, which has happened to me too many times. The flashbacks, PTSD came back, man. I was like,
no.
When your subscription runs up and you forgot that you didn't resub, because I don't know, I don't play console anymore nowadays, but back in the day, you had to pay for your online subscriptions, and if that ran out, they're just like, well, it sucks to suck, bro.
Yeah, I unfortunately wasn't lucky enough because like where my parents lived, we had dial up. That was it. They still don't have anything. They have like a hotspot now. But like growing up, I didn't have Xbox Live until I was like moved out onto my own. And then whenever I got out, I was just like, what is this?
What is this online thing?
So this is a fresh nuance for me.
Oh yeah. So he's playing Xbox, it gets cut off, and so he's just like, whatever, okay. He goes downstairs to make himself a snack, and his snack is just a jar of peanut butter, a bowl of chocolate syrup, and a Red Bull.
Hey.
Just sitting on the couch, just eating that, watching TV, and then obviously his stomach.
It's so funny because it looks like something I would do back in the day. That's why I love this movie because like this is me if I didn't have any supervision. Just like literally like puts the spoon into the peanut butter, rolls it, and it's just like a ball, and then rolls that in the chocolate, and just like
and then washes it down with a Red Bull. It's like my stomach hurts thinking about that. But at 17, 100% would have done that.
Yeah, and then it literally shows him going to take a shit next because he's just like, oh.
And then he comes out of the bathroom, goes up to his room again, and tries buying Afro Man's Because I Got High on iTunes. And this scene,
like, it's just like here, it's like literally a dipstick into 2007. It's ridiculous.
Really and it's great because obviously this is legitimately '07, so like that's the legitimate iTunes of '07. But the seeing that iTunes again brought back so many memories. Because I never pirated music as a kid. I bought every single song I had on my phone, or not on my phone, but on my iPod.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so it just seeing that again, I was just like, holy shit,
well,
man.
Like people don't understand, especially like most of the people that are anywhere like between the age of 16 and up know like relatively like what iTunes is. Mm-hmm. But like when back then iTunes was like the music place. That's where you went.
There was
that's where you went to get. Now everything's just like Apple Music and it's just music on the iPhone.
Exactly.
But now
for you youngins out there who don't know, there was no Spotify or Apple Music, so you had to pay for every single song on your iPod.
Yep.
Or LimeWire. LimeWire was a thing too.
I also love the song choice of what he was trying to download because it's like it's not the movie. He's not doing drugs or anything like that.
Right. He's not smoking weed or anything.
But it's like everything that he's like, I was gonna clean my room, but like that's what his mom wanted him to do. Everything in the song that it's like, but I got high. That's what his mom's wanting him to do: clean the room, do the dishes, all this stuff, and it's like because I got high.
And that segues perfectly into the next part when his mom actually comes upstairs because his iTunes has been disabled. So he can't purchase his song. He just slams his computer down. And his mom comes upstairs. She starts picking up his stuff. And he's watching the trashy TV, she calls it, because he's watching like bikini models and everything. And he switches over to the news real quick. She's like, more trash TV. And he's like, no, it's the news.
Yeah, now on the news, though.
On the news, we'll get to that in a second. Well, actually, let's do it now. On the news, they're talking about the disappearance of a woman.
Yeah, and they don't focus on it.
They don't focus on it, but you hear it several times before it becomes the focus. Because there's a scene where he's down in the living room watching TV with his mom asleep on the couch. They hear it again there. But yeah, there's this woman who's been missing. She's a redheaded woman and everything, and that's key for later on. And so he switches to it, and his mom comes in, and they're talking about, his room being a mess, and she wants him to pick it up his room. He's like, did you cancel my my iTunes and Xbox? And she's like, yeah, and I'm also going to cancel maid service now. And so he throws his clothes back down. She's like, I want you to clean up your room, do the dishes, clean up the kitchen, all this stuff like that. She's like, this is not a vacation. You're a felon. She's like, I'm sorry you're a felon, Kale, but this isn't a vacation. So she wants him to do all this work. And this is the moment where Lonely Day starts playing.
Which is also perfect.
It's a perfect song for this movie. Like, that's, again, I can't stress how much I love the soundtrack and score to this movie.
Yep.
But I love this scene. This scene is one of my favorites in the entire movie because he's doing all the chores and everything. So it starts out with him doing laundry. He's just stuffing all the laundry.
He's literally on top of the machine, like stomping the lid closed.
Stomping the lid closed. Just dumping OxyClean into there, not even measuring it out. Stomps it. It doesn't even shut all the way, and he turns it on and starts
There's clothes hanging out of it and everything.
Then he goes to do the dishes, and he does the same thing with the dishes too. He just dumping palm olive.
He literally leaves the palm olive bottle in the dishwasher when he goes to close it.
Yep. And then my favorite part of the whole movie is after he closes up the dishwasher, he's walking out and he's got a Red Bull and he chugs the rest of it and it's just dripping down. He throws it in the sink. He's just like, hey. I don't know why I love that so much, but he like throws it. He's just like,
I know why you love it so much, because you do that shit all the time. Everything you do, you're like, hey.
Yeah, and it's so great. This scene's perfect because it totally encapsulates the whole idea of his boredom. Because at this point, I don't even know how much time's passed. A few weeks, maybe. But yeah. Ronnie's he's in Hawaii, so he doesn't really hear much from Ronnie that much, and he's by himself all day long because his mom works. So there's just this entire boredom scene, and early in the movie, he even told Ronnie too how much the ankle bracelet itched, and then it cuts to this scene.
Dude, this is what I was talking about, where it talks about life from like a 17-year-old's perspective, and then it goes to this scene where
so he's in the laundry room, and you just hear him going, "Oh yeah, oh that's the stuff." Okay, yeah, and it's like you hear rocking and shaking, and it pans around the corner, and he's just itching his leg with the brush underneath his ankle bracelet, and it's, you're like, obviously you assume, you know, but it cuts around. I remember watching this movie on a tour bus, like one of the charter buses, on a show choir trip. And my teacher, she was not the most keen for movies like this or anything.
The teachers never are.
Yeah. But we're like, oh, come on, it's PG-13. Let's just put it on. Nothing bad's in it or anything. Of course, there's the whole scene when he's running around the house yelling shit, 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 shit. And she's just like looking back. She's like, it ends soon.
It's your fault for trusting your kid.
You should have trusted us. But yeah, this part here, I remember too, she's just like, oh my God, because she thought he was jerking off, obviously. And then it cuts around and she's like, oh, okay. It's like, would they really show that though in a PG-13 movie? Come on.
That's maybe nowadays.
Maybe
but
nowadays.
Not in 2007.
Yeah, not in 07.
I love that, the whole scene about the dishes, all the interactions with Ashley coming up, but like everything that Kale does, it's like so 17-year-old and so putting you in the situation of a 17-year-old boy, especially in 2007. Some of the things are just like, you know, like the sexualization of the females and stuff like that. They might have toned it down a little bit nowadays, but maybe not.
I don't know if they would have, because you look at movies nowadays and they still do the same thing. Now, I will admit there are a lot of gratuitous shots of Ashley barely clothed, but I mean,
but were we mad about it?
I'm just saying. But you think about if you were a male in 2007. That is what you
as a 17-year-old boy. If you had the opportunity to look, that's what you were looking at.
That's what you were doing.
Yeah.
So
that's what I mean. They framed this movie so well from his perspective.
Exactly. And it did such a good job of capturing what it was like to be a male in high school in 07.
Also, under house arrest with nothing else to do.
Right.
Also, when you think he wasn't jerking off, he was. Let's just be real.
But we just don't talk about that. So, speaking of Ashley, let's go ahead and get to her move-in scene, because that's the next scene here. He's walking around and he hears people outside, and he notices in his dad's old study, he can go in there and he's looking around out the window and notices someone's moving in next door. And so he's watching through the window and he's watching people move all the couches and stuff like that. And it's at this point he notices Ashley. And Ashley, again, looks like straight out of 07. Any girl in my high school, literally, that's her.
Yeah, she's like classically pretty.
She is. She's super tan. She's wearing like the real short shorts and everything with like one of those Abercrombie and Fitch tank tops. It's like 100%, what you would have looked like in high school.
I like the choice for the girl they chose for this role though, because I don't know what's her name?
Sarah Romer.
Yeah, so I don't think that she's like she's not like Tara Reid or something where she's just like really thin face and like eyebrows and like
she's like a real person.
Yeah, she looks like, if you were to take all the makeup off of her, she looks like a young Gwyneth Paltrow.
Yes.
And she is very, very pretty, but it's classically pretty.
Right.
And she looks like she would show up in a sweater and sweatpants and she would still be the prettiest girl at the party.
Right.
She's not trying.
She's not like they're not trying to make her like a sex icon. You know, she's not like a Pamela Anderson or anything.
Yeah. And I like that they chose that type of person because it's
she's the girl next door.
That's what I was gonna say. It's like the girl next door, and that's
she is 100% the girl next door, literally. So Ashley's moving in, Kale's watching her and everything, and this is the beginning of Kale watching out the window quite often. And I love the scene here where he's just so enamored by her. The doorbell rings like twice or three times. And finally, he like goes to turn and answer, and he smacks his face off the door because he's like so enamored in watching her. So he smacks his face, and he's like rubbing his hands, like I'm coming. And he goes downstairs, opens the door, and there's a flaming bag of shit on his porch. It's the old.
And what do you do when there's a flaming
bag of dog shit on the porch trick? He steps on it and snuffs out the flame, and then realizes.
I don't understand this. Like,
but it's also 07. That really wasn't like a. I mean, I guess it was a popular thing, but like,
listen, obviously, it never happened to me.
Me neither.
But I knew about it. So
I did
if
too,
someone threw a flaming bag of shit on my porch at any point in my childhood, I would not have stomped it out. I would have grabbed something and went yeet into the grass. Like, I'm not putting my foot in it. Like, not because I know it's poop, because it's fire, and I don't.
But I just don't know if in that moment you answer your door and there's just a flame, like a fire outside your door. Would your first reaction not to be, oh shit, put that out?
No. No, I don't think it would.
I'm glad your house is going to burn down. So
I had a concrete porch growing up, so get wrecked concrete. I literally had fires
made
on
of
the
brick,
concrete.
and we had concrete.
Listen, John Barbario, if you're watching / listening, we did tinfoil fire nights where we would literally take tinfoil, lay it on my concrete porch, and have a fire on the tinfoil. It did not work half the time, but it
sounds like
it was cool
idea.
when it did. We also tried to use a coal from it to light to use as like a hookah coal. Bad idea. Don't ever do that.
Life lessons with Michael. So anyway, Kale puts out the fire and realizes that there is dog shit inside the bag, and at that point he looks up and sees 2 kids on bicycles and they're laughing at him. And he's like, oh, you're so dead. And they're like, what are you going to do? Kill us like you killed your teacher? And everything. Yeah. And he's like, you'll find out when I shove my foot in this shit up your ass. And takes off running after them.
Dude,
this movie,
what a great line. Oh my goodness.
This movie, if you can't tell, is genuinely funny, especially if you're like our age, millennial kind of person. Like this movie has very high tension, but it's so funny when it needs to be funny. It's hilarious, and I love it.
This foot and this shit back.
I'm gonna put my foot in this shit back up your ass. So he chases off after the 2 kids. They run down the street. They're riding on their bikes, and one of them looks over and says, "I thought you said he couldn't leave the house." And it's at this point Kale realizes, "Oh no, I messed up." And he looks down, and his foot's beeping red. So he takes off back up the street, jumps into his yard, and he's like, turn green, turn green, turn green. And starts rolling around the yard. And at that point, Ashley's parents and everyone starts noticing what's going on. They're like looking over like, you okay over there? And he's rolling around and everything. And I love like the POV shot of his ankles. He's like jumping around trying to make it turn green again. And finally he rolls down and it turns green. He's like, yes, and starts celebrating. He looks over and they're all like staring at him. He's like, it's okay. It's green. I'm fine. It's green. We're good. But it's at that point the cops pull into his driveway. And
what the hell? Were they like right down the road?
They must have been right down the road, yeah.
It was like 8 seconds.
It really was, yeah. But they pull in like literally 8 seconds later, roll him over and put him in handcuffs and everything. And we learned that because this was Kale's first offense, nothing's going to happen. But the second time it happens, he's going to be in front of a court.
Listen, I don't actually think that's how it works. So like I've lived with someone who was on house arrest and that had taken place. Usually they call and they're like, what the hell's going on? Or something like that. But maybe if it was longer than like 5 minutes, but I think there's like a little bit of a leeway because there's like, you know, if it turns red and then it turns green, this wasn't believable for me. Like
they got
now also it may be playing off the fact that this dude's got a vendetta against Kale.
I think truly that's kind of what you're going for here is the fact that this officer has a vendetta against Kale because the teacher he punched was his cousin.
Yeah, that's probably it then.
So now obviously I know nothing about house arrest or anything, so
yeah, and
I think honestly you're probably right. If it happened, they would be like, hey, what's going on and everything. You got like you're back in the green, but we saw you went red there for like 30 seconds.
Yeah, they might not call. That might not be accurate, but I don't think it would be, if it was like literally like I think it was less than like 5 seconds.
He wasn't even out for more than 30 seconds. It was definitely more than 10, like she said, but like it was 30 seconds. He ran down the road like maybe past 2 houses and realized oh no and turned around and went back.
Yeah.
So,
but
I don't know. Regardless, he now has strike 1 under his belt. Second time he will be in front of a court, and so essentially at this time. I got lost. I got lost in my notes trying to figure out where I was. At this time, his mom's like very upset with him. She's just like, you're breaking my heart, Kale. I don't know what to do with you anymore.
The disappointed dad.
Disappointment moment. And so Kale decides, you know what, this isn't going to happen again. I'm going to set up a barrier. And I love this scene again. I'm going to say I love this scene a million times in this movie, but I love the scene of him going around setting up the rope around his house because he's got like various things like a lawn gnome, some shears, like just all kinds of a hockey stick, like all kinds of things he's got around his yard, and ties a rope to it. And then at this point, he starts looking out the street and look down the road and everything, and he sees a kid stroll by on a tricycle, and then his mother runs by a couple seconds later, and he's just like, oh, she went down that way.
The kid's in like his underwear.
Exactly, yeah. He sees a dad and a son playing catch with a ball, and then he also sees a dog, and the dog kind of comes up. He's like, oh, come here, puppy, and everything. And the dog gets shocked from an underground fence, and so he's like, oh, you too, huh? So he just realizes,
I love that. I love that.
He realizes he's not the only one trapped. So after he kind of sets up this fence and everything, he goes back inside, and it's at this point he starts watching people because he's so bored. He's got nothing else to do, so he starts kind of like setting up his plan, but he focuses mostly on Ashley because he hears some noises coming from their house. So he goes over and looks out the window again and sees her starting to change out of her clothes. And I loved a moment where he's just like, oh no, I shouldn't. Let's go back into this now.
Moral dilemma solved. Moral dilemma
solved, yeah. So he does look at her as she gets ready to go take a shower and everything. And that's kind of like when, his whole, I don't want to say stalking section of the movie takes place, but he's got nothing else to do. So he's just watching the neighbors.
I mean, I think it's stalking. Like, honestly, like there's no malicious intent behind it, but like he's bored and that's what he's doing. He's stalking these people.
He's got a hot neighbor who he's going to watch.
He's stalking her. He's spying on everyone else. He's
stalking her. He's spying on everyone else. Exactly. Yeah. So after he's been like kind of watching her for a little bit, there's one day where he goes out to get the mail, and this is the first time he gets to meet Ashley. He goes out to get the mail. He's like struggling to reach around the hedge to grab the mail out of there. He's like grunting and everything. Finally, she's just like, do you need some help? And he's like, no, I got this. Don't worry. And I think this right here is another great example of perfect dialogue from this time period. Because he's playing this off like, oh, I don't need any help or anything. And he goes to grab the mail and he like pulls out one letter and she gets the rest of it. And he's like, oh, I got this one though. But he's like, but I got this one though. And they start talking a little bit about everything. He says he's Kale. She doesn't say her name, but her mom comes out and yells. She's like, Ashley, can you come inside for a second, please? And she's on the phone with someone else. And Ashley's just like, my mom, she's nice, but she's got that tone, Did you notice it? Yeah.
There's three things about this scene that I think are really subtle that, again, pointing to like the subtle nuances in this movie. One, like the mother, the tone there implying like, I don't want you anywhere near that weirdo,
right? Because we just saw him get arrested,
which is what the movie's trying to imply. Two, the whole thing where she's actually so sick of her parents that she is also trying to find like an escape from there, which I think is really subtly implied. But I think the third thing that's probably the most subtly implied here is, we forget that he's on house arrest, and it's so subtle and it makes the movie that much better. And I think you really believe that he's on house arrest. What 17-year-old kid gives a shit about the mail?
That's true.
Like, he's actually outside actively getting the mail whenever it shows up. No 17-year-old boy gives a rat's ass about the mail. Because you don't have any bills. You have nothing coming for you.
Right. He'd be inside playing Xbox.
Exactly.
Yeah,
like, that's how bored he really is.
That's a really good point. I like that a lot. So, yeah, good catch on that one. But yeah, he gets to meet Ashley here. And that's kind of the beginning of their relationship in terms of like friendship and everything. So the next day, he gets another knock at the door, and he goes to open it, and Ronnie's home, baby. Ronnie's come back from this trip in Hawaii, and I love the excitement these two friends have for each other, because they haven't seen each other all summer. Who knows? I don't know how long it's been, but it's been long enough to where Kale's like dying of boredom.
It's been like probably like a month.
I would say it's probably like July now, I would say, yeah. So Ronnie's back, and Kale's just over the moon, excited. And I also love the fact that he's got another peanut butter jar in his, Ronnie has the macadamia nuts, but Kale's got like a jar of peanut or ice cream.
He makes a comment about the nuts. He's like, I haven't seen you for this long, and all you bring me is fucking nuts. Like that's all I get is nuts.
Some macadamia nuts. But yeah, Ronnie's over at his house, and so Kale starts showing him all the inner workings of his neighborhood that he's learned over the summer. He goes over and shows. You gonna say something?
No, this whole scene. I've been in the situation that Ronnie's in, because like near the beginning of this, you can tell Ronnie, like, he's just overwhelmed, and he honestly doesn't really care that much about everything.
He's like, this is dumb.
This is like too much, but he's trying to be that good friend. I don't know how many times I've been in this situation to where it's just like, I go somewhere. Jed, if you're listening, this is me every time I'm around you. You're just like telling me all this new weird shit that you have, and I'm just like trying to pretend to care. I love you and I do care, but sometimes it's hard to show that I care. So, but no, everyone, just kidding, by the way.
He's not.
Everyone has that friend that like shows off just a little too much, and they don't mean anything by it, and you love them anyway. But it's just like they do. This is another thing that's like it really cements like how real the friendship is, because I've been in that same boat, and I could relate to that friendship in that moment.
Yeah. And so, yeah, at this point, like, he's showing Ronnie around, and like you said, Ronnie doesn't really care at all until he shows him the Pilch's house. And at the Pilch's house, he says, oh, here, look at this. 4 o'clock, Mrs. Pilch goes out with Big Betty Blonde Bangs or something like that, he calls her, for Pilates or yoga or something. And then he's talking about how the maid upstairs has a titty tat, he says. the maid with a titty tat upstairs. And right on time, Mr. Pilch comes home from work, and here, watch this. And Mr. Pilch walks in the room and goes upstairs, and the maid and him just start making out. And that's when Ronnie's kind of just like, well, shit, you're onto something here. And Kale like casually shows around the rest of the neighborhood. He's like, these are the neighborhood kids who I have a vendetta against, and I'm going to get them back. Mr. Turner here, he mows his yard like 3 times a day, but nothing really else about it. And then he's like, and then here's the pièce de résistance. Like, look at this. And takes him over and shows him Ashley, and shows him her house and the view he has of her as she's swimming in her pool and everything. And so that kind of pulls Ronnie, and he's just like, I love your neighborhood.
I like that he distinguishes your neighborhood and not your view, because that's what this movie is about. It's called Disturbia.
It's about the suburbs.
Because, the suburbs and Disturbed combined together. So I love that he says your neighborhood and not just like, I love this.
Exactly.
So another subtle nuance that really frames the movie for what it is.
Yeah, I think it does a great job of setting that up with that play on words there, because this was a year before Rihanna's Disturbia came out, I think. That was in 2008.
Something like that, yeah.
So I don't know if she got the play on words from this movie or what it was, but I love that, subtle nuance there.
And I think the whole movie does a really good job, like, because I don't think they had him looking around at everyone's house just for the sake of him being bored. I think it frames that the movie is about the suburb.
It is, yeah.
So they had him looking at 5 different houses and everything that's happening between them to establish that this movie is about this neighborhood and the impact that his situation has on the whole thing.
Right. The suburb itself is a character in this movie.
Yeah, absolutely.
Like, the neighborhood is a character. So I think it's the scene is perfectly set up that way, because it shows the different characteristics of that character.
The juxtaposition.
So Ronnie eventually leaves. I don't remember what all there's nothing really important happens between them, but Ronnie eventually leaves, and that night Kale's sitting on the couch watching the news again. They talk about how this woman was last seen in a 1960s style blue Ford Mustang with a scratch on the left fender, or a bumper. And it's at this point he's like barely listening. His phone goes off, and he realizes, oh, it's time to go do some creeping.
Weirdo.
Yeah. He has a timer set to go watch her. So I will take some points off there, Kale, for being a little creepy.
That's what I'm saying. He's a stalker with her. He's just...
Yeah, he's got a timer set because he knows when she does yoga in her room. So he goes in to watch her. And as he's watching her, he's like sitting down in this like low couch with the lights off around him and everything. And she looks up at him. And he's like, no, there's no way. There's no way you saw me. It's too dark in here. You can't see me in here. He's like reassuring himself he can't be seen. And as he's like saying that to himself, Ashley's dad barges into her room. And they start screaming at each other and yelling and everything. You kind of get this idea of what her family's like, what her home life is like. And it doesn't seem to be too good.
Yeah, there's something going on.
Something going on there where her dad, we don't know what she did, but her dad is furious about it, and he's like, raging and everything. But she finally kicks him out and slams his door shut. And she goes over to lay on her bed, and again, for the second time, looks up through the window and looks directly at Kale. And so there's kind of this moment of like, can she actually see him? Does she know that he's watching her? Like, I don't it's never explained whether or not she actually sees him. So
it could. I took it as she could, because I don't think that the movie makes sense in a way, like between their interactions with her not knowing. Because if, let's say, the next time he sees her, she definitely sees him watching when she comes over later.
Oh yeah.
I think that if that were a first time, she probably would have been like, what the fuck? And just been like, weirdo.
Yeah.
But I think that since she noticed him that time and then saw him again the second time, that's when she comes over and is like, okay, what's going on?
Yeah, what are you doing? Yeah.
So.
So yeah, he's watching her and everything. But eventually she turns off all the lights and goes to bed. So he goes back to his room, and as he's laying in his bed, I think he's on the PSP at this point. He hears the car pulling in next door. He kind of is like, that's a loud, like, muscle car sounding thing. So he gets up out of bed and goes to look at the window and sees a blue Ford Mustang, 1960s, backing into Turner's garage with a dent on the left bumper or fender. I'm not a car person. Is the fender the front? Yes, because a fender bender is the front of the car.
I'm like the least car person ever. I'm like, cargo vroom vroom.
Vroom.
I'm not. I couldn't tell you anything but other than like a tire and a steering wheel, what anything else on the car is.
Yes, it's a fender. I'm going to say, yeah, it's a fender. So there's a scratch on the front of it. So at this point, Kale's like, that's suspicious. So he's like, okay, something's weird going on here. So he makes like a mental note to keep watching that. And so the next day he goes out to the yard while Turner's out mowing his grass and goes to sneak up underneath the fence and watch the fence. And this is kind of where the tension in the movie kicks off. This is like the first.
This is the first. Yeah.
This is the first like, oh shit kind of moment in the whole movie, because Turner's mowing his grass and Kale's laying there watching through the fence, and all of a sudden you just hear the mower cut off, and he's just like, hey, and you
I
like,
see you or something like that.
Your skin just crawls on that first one, because he's just like, hey you, what are you doing? You're just like, oh shit, oh no. And Kale's just like dead silent. He's like, he doesn't want to move, he doesn't want to get like, whatever, give away his position. And Turner moves closer and closer towards Kale, and he's just like, "You looking at my garden? You have a nice look at my garden." And you can just see like the fear within Kale. But as Turner gets closer, you realize he's talking to a rabbit that he caught in his garden in a trap. He's like, "Well, I've got you now," and pulls up a cage with a rabbit in it. And he's like, "You're trying to eat all my carrots or whatever, like in my garden." And it's just a sigh of relief, because you're like. They did a really good job of making that tension build. Like,
I don't think it would have been nearly as good if they hadn't have, and this is what I said near the beginning where I was going to keep talking about it. If they hadn't have framed situations that were so relatable for Kale and put you in Kale's shoes so many times,
absolutely,
I don't think this scene would have been impactful. So I think all of it, everything they did with, the ankle bracelet and all the stuff about him doing chores and him watching Ashley, even if that wasn't something you would do as a watcher of this movie, it helps you view it through his eyes. So whenever you finally get to this situation, you're so connected to how Kale thinks and how he acts that you are shuddering in that moment just as much as he is.
Oh, I'm just saying, for me personally, as someone who so this came out in April of 2007. So that would mean I was a junior in high school. No, I was a sophomore in high school when this movie came out. I would have been a sophomore. So I was like 15, 16 years old when this film came out. As someone who was the same age as Kale is in this movie, when I first saw this, I related so hard with him. I was 100% in his shoes, 100% like, seeing this movie through his eyes. And that scene right there struck fear in me.
Yeah, it's like I said, I love not only the scene because it's being called out like that in any situation. One is shocking.
Yeah,
like no one likes to be called out, especially when they're trying to blend in. But two, like I said, the way that they make you really look through his eyes in all these situations builds the intensity, and that's strike one.
Yeah,
and the whole movie just gets more and more intense.
Here is the first level of tense, and now we're just gonna go like this with the rest of it.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep. Agreed.
So the next day, Kale decides to start looking more into the missing girls because he's seen this car now, and he knows something's not up. So he calls Ronnie over, and they're kind of digging deeper into, these missing women. And they realize, all the girls who've gone missing are redheads. They're all from Texas. They originally found a house that was abandoned with all these girls in Texas, and everything. And so they're like, they never caught the killer though, so it could be tied to the missing women here in California. And so they start to dig deeper into it. But about this time, they realize Ashley's going to go for a swim. So they kind of give up on the research. They're just like, well, we can look at that here in a minute. Let's look at this right now. And so they're like, kind of like it's showtime.
It's important how they frame this too, because obviously for what's coming up. But I think I want to touch on the Turner thing with the house and what they what they find. I'll touch on that later though, because I think that's a big plot hole myself. Okay. But later on, it's important that they're looking at that, and because they use that as a crutch here in a few minutes. But yeah, they jump over, and it's like it's important up to this moment that Ronnie's like half invested in this scene. It's important to note that he's like half invested in this neighbor could be this murderer thing, just because
he wants to be there to watch Ashley.
Yeah. So, and then later on in a few moments, watching him struggle through it makes it so much funnier when you realize just how half-ass he is and the rest of it. And then it gets to the next scene and you're just like,
So they go to watch Ashley as she goes to get in the pool. And Ronnie's just like, hey, can I get those binoculars real quick? And he goes and he takes them and he holds them up and he just slowly starts leaning in until he eventually just knocks on the window with the binoculars, and they both freak out. Like Kale and Ronnie both just drop. They're like, shit, and they both just drop down. And I love this part. This is one of my favorite parts. Ronnie's like, oh, there's no way she heard us, right? She didn't hear that. There's no way. And Kale's like, I promise you she heard us. My deaf aunt in Omaha heard you.
Just like an off-the-wall, joke that I definitely would have made at 17.
Absolutely.
Like that. Yeah. Or like my dead grandma would have heard you or something like that.
My deaf aunt in Omaha heard it. And so they both look back up, and Ashley comes up out of the water into her pool and turns and looks up at them, and they drop down. And Ryan's like, yep, she definitely heard it. She saw us. That's 100%, yeah. And so they sit there for a second. They're just like, what are we going to do? And it's like, you know what? We're just going to get up. Nothing ever happened. It's fine. Okay, they get up, and Ashley's gone out of the pool. And Ronnie's like, is her swims usually that short? And Kale's like, no, that's the point. She takes forever when she swims. And so at that point, the doorbell rings. And they both just look at, they're just like, no.
I love this banter too while they're like moving towards the door. They're like, it can't be her. What if it's her? It can't be her. Why would it be? I love that back and forth. Everything is so realistic about the 17-year-old nature of these two. Yeah. I know I've said that 30 times, but it can't be overstated how well the acting and the chemistry is.
Exactly. And then it's even funnier too when they get to the door and Kale's like, shit, it is her. Ronnie's just like, well, don't answer it. And he's like, she knows I'm home. I got that thing on my foot. It's it's so realistic, the dialogue they say. So they answer the door, and Ashley's standing there, and she's just like, so what's up? And she's like, what took you so long? And Kale's like, oh, we were just upstairs playing. And Ryan's like, video games. We were playing video games. And Kale's like, yeah, video games. We were playing video games. And so
playing.
We're just playing video games. And so Kale kind of introduces Ashley to Ronnie. He's like, this is Ronald. Say hi, Ronald. Hi, Ronald. It's like one of those iconic 2000s jokes where it's just like, say hi, you know.
Growing up, your dad's like, say grace at the dinner table.
It's a
and you're
dad
like,
joke.
Grace,
yeah. 100% a dad joke, but it works so well in this scene. And so they go up to Kale's room. They start hanging out and everything. And it's hilarious because they walk in and Kale's like, I'm sorry the room's so messy and everything. And she's like, oh, no, it's okay. And she starts walking around his room looking at stuff. And behind her, Ronnie and Kale are just throwing clothes all over the place trying to clean the room up. And that's when Ashley grabs the binoculars and looks out the window. She's like, you been spying on the neighbors, Kale? And he's like, oh, no, I'm just, watching the world go around or whatever. I'm just watching the wind and stuff like that.
Have we talked about the Twinkie Tower?
He made that during the Lonely Day song, yeah.
Okay.
That's when
I figured it was worth mentioning.
No, we didn't. I didn't mention it. Didn't mention the Tower of Twinkies. So, for those of you guys who are not watching on YouTube, I made a Twinkie Tower like Kale does in the movie. So,
well, we didn't even mention that he made one earlier.
We didn't know. He made that during the Lonely Day scene.
Yeah. And now here it is. I plan on eating how many Twinkies are there?
There's 70.
All 70 of those Twinkies right after we get done recording.
There's 72. I used 7 boxes of Twinkies to make that. I don't even like Twinkies, so you can have added. But regardless, they start talking and everything, and Kale kind of informs her, that he thinks potentially his next door neighbor is a killer. And she's like, interesting. Like, she's not buying this at all. And he's like, well, the car has a dent on it, just like the police said. And at that point, the car actually gets pulled out of the garage. She's like, yep, I'm seeing the Mustang, and there's no dent. And Kale's like taking it back. He's like, how? There's no way he fixed that quickly. But he looks at it, and there's no dent on the car. Everything's all fine and fixed. And so Ashley kind of suggests, well, if you think he's actually a murderer, then we need to have a stakeout. She's like, where's the coffee and donuts? We're going to have a good stakeout. We got to do this right. And so I love the kind of banter they have where they're going back and forth talking about the crimes that have been committed by the guy in Texas. Because they notice as Turner's pulling out his car, they notice a longhorn skull in his house. He's like, what state's famous for longhorns? Texas. And everything. There's like this kind of back and forth idea there. But then Ashley's looking up on the computer all like the past victims. And I love the scene where she's like talking about how these girls died from blunt trauma to the head and neck and everything like that. She spins around the chair and she's just like, I'm hungry. We should order pizza. It just goes to show how her character really is. She's very much that like dry humor, kind of like sarcastic kind of person.
Yeah, and I thought let me start over because I'm tripping over my words. I like that they made that transition because I think it shows that she liked the attention she was getting from the boys, because right then, whenever she immediately switches from pretending to give a shit about this killer guy, because she's not buying it. Like, no. She doesn't buy it till way later anyway. But at that moment, she gives in and she's like, let's get pizza. And it shows that she's more interested in establishing a friendship with them. She's okay with the attention. And at this point, there might be a little bit of her that's like, because she wasn't okay with him watching, because she does bring it up later.
Yeah.
But I think right there it shows that she's fine with the fact that that she doesn't care about that, and that she's more interested in establishing the friendship.
Well, it's also apparent too that she's kind of into him.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like so I think it's kind of
and
that
not
whole,
Ronnie.
And not Ronnie. Yeah, she's into Kale, and it's kind of that whole thing I think to where it is creepy that he's watching her, but she's also like, you know what, he's kind of cute, so I'm okay with it situation. So I don't know. I don't know how the whole dynamic works in her head, but that's kind of the vibe that you get in this film.
There's a lot of things it could be too, like thinking about it like abstractly. He can't really leave the house, so it's not like he could just come over and try to talk to her whenever he wanted to. He didn't do anything to her.
So maybe she sees this as a way of her, like him flirting with her and everything.
Yeah, albeit still weird, but
it's still weird. Absolutely, still weird. Don't stalk your neighbors, guys. So time passes and we cut to nighttime, and they've got all these cameras set up out the window. And again, it's perfect embodiment of what 2007 was, because they don't have iPhones set up out the window. They've got these actual like legit camcorders hooked up to the computer as like a live feed, and I love it. It's a fantastic. I love it so much. It's like a LAN party going on with camcorders.
A LAN party, jeez.
And so they've got this set up. Ronnie's asleep on the couch, and Kale and Ashley are kind of sitting there talking about everything. And we get a little bit more backstory about Ashley's life, because Kale says, so why did your parents move you to the burbs? And she's like, well, my dad had some issues with, seeing his coworkers or whatever, like meaning like her dad was cheating on her mom. And Kale gives this like quippy one line where it's like, oh yes, let's move out of the city to the suburbs. And it's like, don't worry about infidelity, but look at all this space we have.
It's true though. I mean, because I've never been in a marriage where someone was unfaithful, but I get needing the change of scenery. Mm-hmm. It's not just about and it goes to show they really are like 17-year-olds, because they have a very limited view on like what life is about. Because when you're married and you have kids, regardless of whether you treat your kids like shit, I'm not saying that it's okay. I'm saying like the subtleties in this movie make the movie believable.
Exactly.
And even that little bit about the family, whether they're shitty parents or not, the father, whether he's a shitty dad or not, probably still cares about his kids. And whatever that the mother wants, we need to get out of here. I need to get away from that workplace, and we just need to change the scenery. Those are legitimate things where like families legitimately go through.
Right. They're trying to save their marriage, and their daughter only sees it for what it is. It's my dad cheated on my mom. But yes, let's move to the suburbs because that's going to make things so much better. When in reality, that actually might help a lot of things to get out of that toxic city area and come out someplace.
Yeah, and it might not too.
Exactly.
But the point is like that's the reality of the situation, and the reason it's framed that way in the movie is because they're 17. They don't fully understand it. They're not meant to understand it, and they're going to have their own opinion on it and think that they're right. Exactly. And I love that that's set up in this movie, and that's something I didn't really glean until now. Whenever I'm an adult in a marriage, not that like my marriage doesn't have any infidelity in it that I know of.
Look at you, Brittany.
But no, all joking aside, the movie does a really good job of like it's just another one of those subtle nuances that like makes the movie very believable.
Mm-hmm. So yeah, they're talking about all that stuff and everything. So we get kind of more into Ashley's backstory, and she doesn't really like it out here in the suburbs, but she's with her parents, she's stuck, she can't really do anything about it. And she asks Kale, she's like, so what are your issues? And Kale makes another joke. He's like, what makes you think I got issues? And she like points to his ankle bracelet. And he's like, oh, you don't want to know about my issues and everything. And I forget what leads into it, but she ends up painting hearts on his ankle bracelet.
I think she just asks.
She was
like,
can I put some color on there or something?
Paint it or something like that?
Yeah. But regardless,
because he put stickers on it.
That's right. He's got like flames and skulls on it, like stickers. Yeah.
Yeah. And she makes a comment about that, and then he asks if she likes it or if it's cool or something, and she's like, "Yeah, but can I doctor it up?"
Right. I could use
something?
some color or something like that. Oh, also, right before this too, before they got into Ashley's backstory, she was on his phone. I forgot she had Kale's phone and was like messing around on it, and then closed it and flipped it up to him and everything. He's like, how'd you get my phone? That's a total invasion of privacy. He's like, I could report you to the cops for that.
Irony.
I know, right? And she's like, I think you'll like the changes I made. And she goes over and grabs Ronnie's phone out of his pocket. And again, those of you who don't know, flip phones, there was no password protection on there. So you were able to just get anyone's phone you wanted to. So she opens up Ronnie's phone and calls Kale. And the ringtone... I
want to hear your best rendition of it. Come on. This is for everyone. You're welcome, by the way. Come on. What? I'm going to pretend to be Ronnie calling Kale right now.
Oh, God.
Ring, ring, ring.
Oh, me so horny. Oh, me so horny.
100% worth it. That was awesome.
So that's gonna be your new ringtone now. You're gonna isolate that and be
hell yeah.
Taking that. So yeah, she sets up Kale's ringtone to sing that song every time Ronnie calls him, and it's hilarious. I also had a friend in high school who made that their ringtone, by the way, because this was before people just had their phones on silent 24/7. We had actual ringtones we used.
No one has ringtones anymore.
No one has ringtones.
No, and if they do, like
they're over 50.
Yeah, I have a ringtone on my phone, but it's because since I've had an iPhone for like 10 years now, it's just saved from my like 10-year-old iPhone through like iCloud the whole time.
I'm just saying, when I had my Razr phone, when I had that phone, I had personalized ringtones for every person in my phone.
Yep.
So I knew who was calling me whenever someone called me. It's like, that's just a lost art.
Yeah.
I feel so old saying that, but it is. No one uses ringtones anymore. And if they do, it's the default just iPhone ringtone.
Yeah.
So she changes his ringtone, and it's hilarious because it plays in the most awkward positions later on in the movie. But
we'll have Ryan sing it every time it comes up too.
Oh, I'm so horny. Looking back on this now, is that song considered offensive because of the way it's being sang? In 2021, of you lens of 2021, would that song be considered offensive?
What's wrong with being horny? I mean, someone's just telling us they're horny. Okay.
I don't know. Anyway, so
I'm not offended by it.
Regardless, at this point, Turner arrives back home. And so Ashley and Kale kind of get their stuff situated and they're watching him. And they realize another car has pulled in behind him. And Ashley immediately realizes, oh, that's a club girl. And Kale's like, how do you know she's a club girl? Because she sees 3 bracelets on her arm from different clubs and she's able to name them right out. And I love just kind of like the quick, subtle thing where Kale's like, you must have a great ID. And she's just like, I don't need an ID. Like, it's just like this subtle, like very much like, I'm a hot girl. I can get in any club I want to without an ID. So... yeah. But she's explaining that, and then they watch as Turner takes this girl into his house, and they start like just watching them have dinner and or eat or whatever. And Turner goes to kiss her, and the girl turns away from him, and Ashley's just like denied. But then she starts dancing.
I love this scene too.
I know,
this is
right?
Awesome.
Then the girl starts dancing, and Ashley's like, what do you think they're listening to? And Kale's like, hold on, I got this. And goes over to his iTunes and starts playing different songs until they find one that matches. And it's like the most random songs too. He plays like a country western song and like I forget what the first song was. But then he finally finds like this slow dance like song and everything. And Ashley's like, yep, that's it. That's perfect match. And he's like, that does match. So
and it keeps like, the camera keeps panning back and forth to make it like to show what does match and what doesn't. Like again, looking through the eyes of
right. And that's what I like. I think I'm not a big fan of found footage films, but I think this movie meshes found footage and actual like, cinematography really well because it cuts back and forth between what they're recording and what the actual cameras
and the
recording.
grainy ass zoomed in quality.
God, the grain zoomed in quality. We're talking
which would be what it would be.
We're talking like 144p. Like,
well, yeah. I mean, realistically though, they're zoomed in probably what 200-300 feet,
something like that. Yeah.
So it would be pretty grainy.
It's super grainy, but it's so realistic,
which makes the upcoming scene pretty terrifying.
It does, yeah.
The graininess.
So yeah, they're watching Turner and this girl dance and everything, and then all of a sudden they realize that Turner's picked up a knife, and they start kind of freaking out for a second. They're like, "Oh shit, what's he gonna do?" But he just walks up behind her and cuts off a tag off the back of her dress.
She's a club girl. She keeps her tags on her dresses so she can
return them. And as she says that, she's like, "Well, I guess she's not returning that dress now." I kind of love that too because I don't know if that's like a dick move or not because he just cuts the tag off her dress so she can't return it now.
I think it's subtly meant to be like overly complimentary because it's like you look so good in this dress. There's no way I can let you return it. It's like that's how I.
Okay.
So. Well, yeah, it's like there's like the subtle.
Wear anything other than this ever again because I'm going to kill you here later on. But yeah.
Spoiler alert. Well, not really.
Not really. You guys should already have seen the movie anyway. So after they kind of have this sigh of relief that Turner's not going to murder her, Ashley's phone rings and I don't remember what the song is. It's like it's not the Imperial March. It's like dun 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 dun.
Yeah, da 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 da. Mozart,
dun, dun,
maybe. I don't. Beethoven.
It's Beethoven, I think. Yeah. I'm sorry, I don't know my classical music very well.
Damn it, Roger, where are you when we need
Roger,
you? The one time we actually need you, where are you?
But it's Ashley's mother, and she's calling to see where Ashley is, and she's like, "Oh, I'm at Barnes & Noble," which is a funny lie because it's like 10, 11 o'clock at night, if not later.
Barnes & Noble is a cool place. Okay?
I don't know if
they
California
have 3D printers there.
California's got Barnes & Nobles that are open 24 hours. I don't know.
I'm at a Red Bull. I'm sad.
You can grab one from up there if you want.
I might.
There's 2 of them up there.
Don't tip me, Frodo.
But yeah, she's like, I'm at Barnes & Noble. I'll just walk home. Don't worry about me. And so at that point, and Kale's like recording her the whole time too. He's like, zooming in on her and making this joke out of it and everything. And so Ashley has to leave. So she goes to leave. But not before, this is the point where, yes, it is. They almost kiss here. Right before her mom calls, they almost kiss, and Ronnie wakes up and he's just like, "My dad likes this song." This is rewind a second. This is when the club girl's dancing. They almost kiss while the music's playing and everything, and then Ronnie wakes up and he's just like, "Huh, who's the hot redhead over there?" Talking about the girl that's dancing, and Kale's just like, "Ron, don't you have something to do?" He's like, "What?" He's like, "You got somewhere to be, right?" It's like 100% like what all my
Doesn't
friends.
Doesn't he say he's gonna go make pizza rolls or something like that?
He's got a handful of pizza. He's holding the pizza in his hand the entire time. Yeah, he's like, "Oh yeah, I got somewhere to be." He just like walks out.
Well, I like how this is framed too because like there's this whole thing with this Beethoven song And there's this buildup of tension where they think she's gonna kill Turner's gonna kill this girl, and he just cuts the tag off. So they just kind of they're like, oh, and then they just kind of turn away from it, and they just kind of leave. What will be because she's not dead. Essentially, it's like
she's
whatever.
Still alive, yeah.
So,
and so yeah, we have that funny moment with Ronnie. He leaves. They almost kiss, but then they realize the knife and everything. So they're watching that, and then her mom calls, and she ends up leaving. And she's like, "Will you walk me out?" And so they kind of walk out to the front yard of the house, and Ashley is talking to him and everything, and he's like, "Same time tomorrow, same shift tomorrow, and everything." And she's like, "I'll let you know." And she leans in to kiss him, and then pulls the rope that he's had for his boundary over her head and backs
dick
up in the
move.
yard. Yeah, she's like denied.
Which I love that because it's setting up for like the end of the movie.
Oh yeah,
because it's just like the pull and then the other side. I like that. I
love it too, and it's definitely like one of those things. I've personally had something like this happen to me before, to where it's like we're leaning in, we're about to kiss and everything, and then it's just like, well, I'm gonna savor this.
Aren't you such a romantic?
I know, right? I'm gonna savor this moment for later. Put you on hold, basically, and we'll come back to this. I'm just like,
me so horny.
It's just those games, man. So, regardless, Kale goes back up to his room. And he notices two things. First thing he notices is the neighborhood, which is a setup for the end of the movie, and we'll get to that later. But he notices the neighborhood boys watching porn. Their mom walks in.
The little boys,
right? The little boys who put shit on his door.
Yeah, they're probably like in the third grade, maybe.
I'd say they're like, I was like,
maybe like fifth.
They're like 8 or 9, probably. Yeah,
something like that.
But he notices that, and the mom comes in the room. They quickly turn it off to something else, and Kale's like narrating the whole thing. He's like, "Oh no, mom, we're just watching cartoons," and she's like, and he's like, the mom voice. He's like, "Okay, boys, but you guys are being good boys and everything. Just go back to watching your stuff. You grow up too quickly." And then he leaves, and then they turn it back to porn. He's just like, "You bastard, you horny bastards." And it's at this point he notices someone screaming. And so he turns his attention back to Turner's house, and he sees the club girl running through the house yelling, "Help." And now that is like, suspicious. So Kale quickly grabs up his camera and starts recording everything. And that's when the power goes out next door. Like the lights go out next door. And so he's trying to like get everything situated and everything. And as he's trying to fix things, he hits the button on top of his camera that flashes the light. Like the flash goes off.
Dude, this is like pinnacle of suspense in this movie.
The suspense is great.
My heart was beating at this part so fast.
Yeah, and so he's like trying to get everything fixed, and the flash goes off, and he's like, "Shit," and drops down real quick, and he's like breathing heavily, and he pulls the cam. I love the part where he turns the screen around and holds the camera up, trying to like get it, like to figure it out. And he can't see anything, so he puts it back down, picks up his binoculars, and pans through the house. And we see Turner staring at him through the window.
Yeah, and then he like falls. That right there, I'm just like,
yeah, I know. It's like one of those jump scares that's like not an actual jump scare, but it's just one that it makes your soul take a screenshot.
Yeah, that's a good way that's a really good way to describe it. Your soul takes a screenshot. You're like, something you couldn't do in 2007.
Exactly. So at that point, the ringtone goes off again, and Kale scurries across his room, picks it up, and he's like, Ronnie. And Ronnie's just making a joke. He's like, how far did you get? Everything. And Kale's like trying to explain, Turner cut the power. She saw the girl running through the house screaming help, and then he saw him. Like, Turner saw me. And so he's trying to explain all this stuff to Ronnie, and Kale's like, well, what if she's dead, man? What if she's dead? And then he hears an engine start, and he kind of looks up out the window, and he sees the club girl walking to her car, getting into her car and backing out and leaving. And so he's like, it's the club girl. She just left. And so Ronnie's like, see, everything's okay. You're fine. Don't worry about it. And so it's just kind of that like very much, again, a sigh of relief almost at this point, because the girl's not dead.
Can we talk about this for a second?
Yeah.
What happened in this house?
In Turner's house?
Yes.
So
I know there's a couple scenarios of what could play out to where this would make sense, but like if she's running the only thing I can think of is there some type of role play happening here? Like, why?
That's what Ronnie thinks it is, and that's what Ashley.
Oh, I'm sorry. Never mind. I forgot a key element.
What's that?
I forgot a key element later on in the garage, the makeup and stuff like that. No,
Yeah.
Okay, I forgot completely about that. Never mind.
Well, I mean, we can go ahead and say it because we have spoilers, and you should have already listened and seen the movie. Obviously, that's not the club girl leaving. That is Turner dressed up as the club girl getting into his car because he knows Kale's watching.
Yep.
But he also, too, we can assume he's already had this stuff for reasons like this before in the past. Right. But he has a wig and everything that he puts on, and he goes out, takes her car, and leaves. So we know the club girl never left. So I don't know if his house is rigged to be locked off from the inside. That's why she couldn't get out and what happened. But I'm assuming it's kind of like an escape room. He's got special locks on his doors that they can't break through and everything. Then I don't think he kills her. I think he knocks her out and puts her in his torture chamber in his basement, like the weird cement maze he's got downstairs, which we'll talk about later. But I think he ties her up, puts her downstairs, and then pretends to be her and leaves.
Yeah.
Yeah.
See, I knew. I've seen this movie so many times. I knew at the end there was that, but then I always forget. Every time I think about this movie, I forget about the fact that was actually him in that makeup and wig and stuff that they show near the end. I always forget about that.
Yeah.
So my bad. I'm an idiot.
Way to go.
I made that connection again, but too late. So still, there's another plot hole. That was not the main plot hole.
Go ahead and bring that up because you mentioned that earlier about the girls and the disappearances in Texas.
Okay, so it's not so much in the Texas thing because like you could get away with it there if no one had been in your house. How in the world, the way that the bodies are in that house, how would you be able to walk into that house and not absolutely reek? The way like they're in the ventilation, they're in those bags, and they're like cut open and stuff. That house would be awful.
Well, okay, so I don't know the layout of the Texas house. We don't know what it was set up to be like. However, if you remember in a couple scenes from now, when they're breaking into Turner's car, Kale's explaining the blueprints of the house. The section between the garage and the house was not actually there. That was built on.
Right.
It wasn't the original blueprints. So what I think it is they're not actually in the vents. I think that whole area in between the garage and the house is temperature controlled, and I think it's in some kind of like sterile unit to where the bodies decompose very slowly. Well, he's got them almost like preserved, like mummified almost.
Right, but where he sees the first body, he trips and falls in front of a vent.
That's because if you remember when he goes into the vent, and again we'll talk about all this here in a minute. When he goes into the vent, he has to like push aside a wall that was detached. Like Turner must have fucked up or something and like hit the wall, so it was like.
I thought that was just
open.
like a piano or like something like that.
He has to push the piano aside to get to the vent, but then once he gets into the vent, there was like a one of those like metal, like air conditioning vent walls in front of it. He has to push aside. Okay. So that room is sealed off normally. Okay. It's like for plot convenience, it was slightly ajar when Ronnie ran to the house and caught her on camera.
Gotcha. Horror movie got a horror.
Horror movie got a horror. But we'll get back to that later on. So the next morning, Kale wakes up and goes downstairs to make himself a bagel with a big-ass knife. And he opens the fridge and shuts it, and Turner is in his house. And rightfully so, he freaks out and panics. And he's like, what are you doing in my house? And everything. And his mom walks in, and she explains the situation that she was at the store, she had a flat tire, and Mr. Turner helped her change it, and everything saved her life, basically. And then she remarks, too, she's like, Kale, can you use a butter knife, please? Because he's, like, smearing cream cheese on the bagel with this big kitchen knife. And he's like, it's a knife, what's the difference? And Mr. Turner's like, about $60 at Bed Bath & Beyond.
Nerd.
Yeah. So they start talking, kind of about, like, Kale's situation and everything. Turner's trying to be, polite, but also...
He's being pedantic.
He's definitely being pedantic, yeah. He's trying to, like, send a message to Kale without being obvious to his mom.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, that he knows he watched him last night. So he's like, what do you have the ankle bracelet on for? And Kale's mom was just like, oh, it's just one thing. And Kale's just like, I popped my teacher.
I beat the shit out of this guy. That's why.
Yeah, that's why I have it. And so there's this moment between Turner and Kale where Turner's like, I get it. I had plenty of teachers in my high school, too, that I just wanted to kill. So it's this very much kind of like, and I love the dynamic between the two of them because it's very obvious. They both know what they know, but at the same time, Kale's mom is in the room. So they have to play it off like, nothing's going on. And I think they do a really good job of doing that.
Yeah, I do too. And I
while
really
still being demanding.
And like the whole thing about him being there, there's the subtlety there being he definitely followed her and definitely was the one that slashed her tire.
Absolutely.
And it was all just to get back to Kale, just to show don't fuck with me. Like leave me the fuck alone. Mm-hmm. Because like we don't obviously at that moment he's been doing this for a very long time. He's very confident in his alibis and everything. So he's not worried about Kale, but he just wants Kale to leave him alone. Kale obviously is thinking, oh my God, he knows that I know and he's going to kill me.
Right, because at this point, Turner looks at Kale kind of like a bug. He's just like, it's just annoying. I'm going to snuff it out now because if it comes to the point where I have to kill it, I will do so. But right now, just shoo fly.
Yeah, shoo fly, don't bother me.
Yeah, shoo fly, don't bother me. Stay away for your own good.
Yep.
This is just a warning. So, Kale's mom takes Mr. Turner into the living room. They kind of have like their coffee and everything like that. And then it cuts to later in the day where Ashley and Ronnie are over and they're talking about how Turner was in his house and how like kind of creepy and weird that was and everything. And so they realize that they have to, figure out kind of like what's going on. Something weird's up now because the girl was screaming help and everything, and then she left, but it just doesn't sit right with them. They need to figure out what's going on. And as they're talking, Ashley mentions that she's having a party that night. She ran into Minnie Tycho. Is that something? I think that's her name, yeah. And Kale's like, oh, Skinny Psycho. And he's just like, yeah, I know her. And she's like, yeah, I became friends with her and everything, so we're going to have a party. And Kale's very quickly, his mood shifts very fast. He's just
kind of a dick about it.
He's really very much a dick about it. Yeah, he's like, oh, I didn't realize you were going to conform that quickly to all the jocks and bimbos and everything. And obviously, Ashley's like very pissed about this. She's just like, why are you being a dick about this? Like, why are you acting this way? Is it because you can't come, or like, what's the reason that you're acting like this? And honestly, I don't know the answer to that. I don't think he's mad that he can't be at the party. I don't know, because he doesn't seem like he gives off the vibe of him being like a loser at high school. He just seems, in the beginning when we see him, he just acts like kind of like a burnout. But it's because he just went through the loss of his dad. But then Ronnie's his friend, and Ronnie seems like he's a very popular, likable character. So I don't know what his relationship with school is, but
I think it's just he's just upset that he's not the one she's spending time with. Yeah, and it's classic high school jealousy. Mm-hmm. Like, you shouldn't be partying with a bunch of guys when I'm not there. You've made it clear that you're into me. Like, why can't you just spend time with me? Exactly. Am I not good enough for you? And then he's projecting that onto her by being a dick. So.
Right. So Ashley's party comes. Oh, she also tells him to keep the binoculars in the drawer for the night. She's like, don't be watching my party and everything, which obviously is not going to happen.
Yeah, for sure.
So the night of the party comes, and he's, Ashley's got everyone outside by the pool and everything, and Kale's sitting up in his chair watching out through the window. And everything's fine. He's like making side comments every now and then about who she's talking to, until she goes up to this boy and hugs him. And he like picks her up and everything. It was like one of those like intimate kind of hugs. And Kale's like, okay, enough of this. I'm tired of it. And he goes and grabs his stereo system.
I love this.
Yeah, he goes and grabs his stereo system, plugs it all up, puts it on the roof, and turns it towards her house, cranks it all the way up, and starts playing Minnie Riperton's Loving You.
Loving You.
Hit the high notes for me?
Nope, I can't. That's literally about as high as I can get.
Which immediately is heard over Ashley's music at her house. And so everyone looks up, and Ashley's pissed. She's just like, you son of a bitch. Okay. And Kale's just sitting there laughing and everything. He's having a great time with it. And he kind of watches as she walks around and leaves, and he thinks she's going to come through the door, but she just bursts in through his window. Like, she climbs up the side of his house and comes in through his window and storms off towards the music. He's just like, what are you doing? It's like, you don't like Minnie Riperton? Also, I forgot, at this point, the doorbell rings. He thinks it's her, but he opens it, and it's the kids again, and they throw water balloons at him.
Oh, yeah, that's right.
I forgot about that, yeah. And that's how she walks up the side of his house and everything and gets in. And so she finally gets the music turned off and everything, and they have this moment on the balcony, and I've said many times this is my favorite part of the movie, but I think this is my favorite line of the movie. This is the most relatable line to me, at least at this time. She takes his iPod, which, by the way, is the classic iPod with the scroll wheel and everything. Like,
which, by the way, are still worth hundreds of dollars. Like, people still pay literally top dollar for not even new ones, for like used scroll wheel iPods. Like,
I won one of those out of that stacker machine at the mall.
I don't even understand how. That thing was literally impossible.
I might have played it a lot, but I won it. It was a classic iPod, like 128 gigs.
Nice.
Yeah.
I won it.
I won it.
I wonder if you can still put shit on those. Anyway.
Well, they got the big old, like, nowadays we have this like lightning charger. They had the big one.
The
like,
big
about this,
fat one?
Yeah, remember about this big? Yeah. I don't even know you can get those cords anymore. I'm sure you could. But regardless, she takes his iPod and holds it over the edge of the pool like she's going to drop it in the water. And he's like, wait. That's 60 gigs of my life right there.
And for you youngins, everything's waterproof now. Stuff wasn't waterproof then.
No, and you might say, 60 gigs, that's nothing. But in this time, remember, it's just an iPod. There's no pictures, no videos, no nothing but music.
Yeah.
60 gigs of music is a lot of music.
It is. That is quite a bit of music.
And so at this point, he starts kind of like gushing everything out to her, just like revealing all of his sins and secrets. And she's just like, how long have you been watching me, Kale? Just tonight, just this past week, 3 weeks since I moved in. And that's when he starts explaining everything to her. He's like, I've not been watching you. I've been watching like you. He's like, I've gotten to know who you are. He's like, you're like the only person I've ever seen who likes to, read like real books, not like US Weekly or like 17 magazine. You're reading actual literature. And starts going, I forget all the whole list of things he says to her.
He talks about the biggest thing he brings up is like, well, first I'll say I think the way that she frames the question is the most important thing, because she's implying like, what all have you seen is as in like, have you seen me like changing? Have you seen me like when I'm intimate by myself, like, or crying and things like that, like embarrassing or private things? But he shifts the conversation in a way that makes it, I've seen a lot of things that have helped me get to know you, like you said. And right. He says a lot of things like you said, but the most important one was how he sees how she looks at herself in the mirror, right. Not as like, I'm a very pretty girl and I care about myself, but I look and ask like, who am I? Mm-hmm. And that's like a big deal. And that's whenever she's just like, swoon, she's like, that's either the creepiest thing or not sexy, but she's like the most romantic thing I've ever heard in my life. And apparently it was romantic because she swoons and goes over to him and they just start making out. And I love the juxtaposition of this scene because, hey, there's that word.
Because they are hardcore making out on his bed. You're having a Red Bull.
Don't mind me. Go on.
Because they're making out in his bed, and it's this like romantic scene between the two of them, and then it cuts away and just shows blood spatter up on Turner's wall. Because he's got, it's like a Dexter moment. He's got...
it is so Dexter. I thought that exact same thing.
He's got the plastic sheets over his window, and so like they're making out, and it cuts over to Turner's house, and you hear like a saw, and then just blood spurts up the wall.
Listen, it's a little over the top. It's literally in the middle of the night, and your light's on and blood is splattering all over the place. Yeah. If anyone is in the area, they're going to hear it and they're going to see it. It was like, it was for this horror movie got a horror.
It was solely for like, horror movie got a horror. That 100% that's what that was for. I will admit, I think this right here is one of the moments of the movie where it kind of loses me. Like this scene was solely because it's like, we have to be a horror movie. You remember, it's not just a teen romance movie.
Yeah, the whole thing is like up to that moment. I think that was the moment where it showed he's a killer. Because of all the other stuff, it was believable. It was just
circumstantial. Yeah. This is the moment where you realize, no, he's actually murdering people. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And I like that the movie isn't one of those movies just like, oh my God, is a killer all the way up to the end. The movie tells you he is.
Yeah.
And now that's whenever like tense moments become even more tense.
Exactly. Especially because after this happens, they start hearing noises over by Turner's house. And so they get up and go look, and they notice him pulling a garbage bag into his garage. And as they're looking at it, they're looking through the binoculars and everything, and I think it's Ashley. She's like, there's blood in that bag. Like she's like, what is that? And he's like, what? And she's like, it's red. And he's like, is it blood? And he takes it and looks through it, and you see like kind of hair and blood sticking out the top of the bag. And so now they are both 100% on board. Turner is murdering people. We got to figure out what the hell is going on. So this next scene, the next day, I love it because Ashley's following Turner around at the store while Ronnie has to break into Turner's car to get the garage door code.
Yeah, that was...
I can't give enough props to how well this scene is acted and this whole movie as a whole is acted because Ronnie does a fantastic job. This would 100% be me if I was doing this.
Not me. I wouldn't be doing this.
I was gonna say I wouldn't be doing it in the first place.
If this dude, I'm sorry, if this dude was murdering people, and if I had saw that and I was like, this dude's 100% murdering people, I'm not doing shit about it. I'm sorry. Like I don't want to die.
I don't want to die. Yeah, and I think Ronnie gets that point across perfectly because he's panicking the entire time, and Kale's like, "Don't worry, Ashley's got him in the store. You're fine. You got plenty of time." And he even says too, I love the part where he's like, "Oh, that's cool." And Ronnie's like, "What?" And he's like, "Ashley's got like this live feed going. It's just a bunch of pictures. It's not actually even a live feed. It's just a bunch of pictures popping up." But Ronnie gets in the car and pops open the garage door opener and tries to get the code to open the garage door so they can program another garage door opener for later on. And it's at this point that Ashley runs into Minnie Tycho again and loses Turner. And she's like, shit, Kale, I've lost him. I don't know where he went to. And Kale calls down to Ronnie and he's like, Ronnie, you need to hurry up. You need to hurry up right now and get this figured out. And Ronnie's like, why are you so anxious? Like, why is your voice so panicky? He's like, what is going on with you? And Ronnie's like, and Kale's like, well, Ashley lost sight of Turner. And Ronnie's just like, nope, screw this. Operation Stupid is over.
Operation Stupid
is officially over.
Now, one thing I did want to say is whenever she's got him in his view, he does go and pick up a shovel.
He does,
which
yeah.
some people have speculated to be a homage to Holes.
I didn't even think about that.
Yeah.
Okay.
I didn't think about it either, and I saw it. It wasn't X-Ray that had that. It was some. I watched it on Amazon, but I forget where it was that I saw that. But it was. I was like, because he could have picked up anything.
He could. Yeah. I mean, he's in a. Like a Home Depot or something like that. Like, yeah, they could have been anywhere. So
pick up a shovel, which if you see near the end of the movie, you could see why he would use a shovel, but it's probably pretty clear he has plenty of shovels given how much digging he's done.
Exactly.
So I just thought that was that had to have been the reason.
I like that a lot, actually. I'm going to go and say, yes, it's confirmed. It's confirmed. That's a whole
You heard it first here, folks.
You heard it first here. That is confirmed. I'm not nothing to do with the movie, but I'm confirming it because I want it. So Ronnie finally gets the code and gives it up to Kale and everything. And then he leaves and runs out. We cut back to Ashley, who's driving to the parking garage. And as she's driving, Turner jumps out in front of her car and is like standing in the middle of the road. And she slams on her brakes. And she's like, on the phone, she's like, Kale, please pick up. Like, please, like, answer me.
Because she's still on hold, right?
Right, she's on hold because there was like he's going back and forth between her and Ronnie. And so Turner like comes over, puts his hand through the window and turns her car off and then gets in the car with her.
Creepy.
And this scene again, guys, this movie does a great job of building this tension. It is such a tense scene. Like this might be, I don't want to say it's the most tense scene, but it might be the most tense scene in the movie. I'm trying to think if there's any more like later on, even when he's inside Turner's house.
I think this one, I think it might match some of the other intense moments, but it's just because everything's on the table. All the cards are out there, and he knows there's something going on. The point being is, if there's any other tense moment, this tops it, just because of the fact that all the cards are laid out.
Exactly, and not to mention too, Turner is there to both intimidate her, and also he's being quite pervy towards her too. Like he does make some pervy comments. He gets in the car and he starts talking about how pretty she is, and he like strokes her hair and everything. And he like, I don't remember exactly what he says, but he just starts making some really creepy comments towards her. And then he just mentions
he makes a comment about why a young pretty girl like him does she have some type of fetish for like older men
guys,
or something
yeah.
like that? Which again, I don't necessarily think that he's making comments like that to be because he wants to get with her. I think it's one, to make her uncomfortable, and two,
he's trying to scare her away.
Right, he's trying to scare her, and three, there's some subtlety there that is like, if I were to file a complaint about this, I've not done anything wrong. Yeah. And this is exactly how it would come off.
You're the one following me.
Exactly.
You're the one stalking me. Exactly, yeah. And he says it, like, at the end of this whole speech, after he's like kind of taking her hostage here, so to say, he's like, I like my privacy. I'm a very shy guy. And then he says, just so you know, you're not the only one who's watching.
I know you're not the only one who's watching. Yeah,
I know you're not the only one who's watching. So he then puts her keys back in her car and starts it and gets out and leaves. And we cut back to Kale's house, where Kale's like, we got to call the cops. He broke into your car and intimidated you and everything. And he's like, he's a grown man. You're a teenage girl. That's not okay. And Ashley's like coming to his defense almost. She's like, no, we can't call the cops. What he said was right. We're invading his privacy. We're the ones stalking him. Like, he's done nothing wrong. So we can't call the cops. And Ronnie makes some line about, he's like, I think this is that Stockholm syndrome where like he calls him the kidnapper. And she's like, how do you know all this stuff? And he's just like, I read. I like to read. And so, yeah, there's this, that whole moment where, they're just like, we don't know what to do and everything. And my mind slipped me here. It actually kind of like is just like, well, I'm done doing this whole thing. And then her mom calls her again. And that's why she has to leave at this point. Because she's like, no, I'm not over here.
Yeah, I'm not over here.
Yeah, I'm not over here. And so she leaves. And I don't remember what happens between now and when Ronnie calls Kale. I just watched this movie again, and I forget what happens. Like, and if anything important happens, it's probably nothing super important. But later that night, Ronnie calls Kale because he realizes he left his cell phone in his car, in Turner's car. Yeah. So he has to get it back. So they make this elaborate scenario where Kale sets up a wireless receiver on the camcorder so he can watch Ronnie in the house as Ronnie goes into the garage to try to get his phone, because he also wants Ronnie to look in the bag and see what's inside the bag. And so Ronnie takes it, and I love how it's all like Splinter Cell, because he's like sneaking around the house. He like jumps around the corner and everything, like with the camera. And it's hilarious because like the footage on the camera is very much like pixelated and grainy, and it's awful quality. And he's talking on the phone, and he's just like, yeah, I can, or through walkie-talkie, he's like, yeah, I can still see you. You're good to go, man. You're clear. And there's no movement whatsoever. So Ronnie goes into the garage, and he gets his phone back, and that's when Kale's like, you need to go look in the bag now. And Ronnie's like, no, I'm not. I don't want to do that. I want to leave. I want to get out of here. And he's like, no, you come this far. Just go look in the bag real quick. So Ronnie sets the camera up on top of the car, facing him. He's like, okay, I'm going to put this down real quick. And he goes over, and he starts going through it, and he's like, talks about how bad it stinks. He's like, there's blood, there's hair, all this stuff like that. And at that point, the camera begins to slip. And Kale's like, Ronnie, the camera. And he jumps and catches the camera really quick. And he's like, oh, that was close. And then Kale realizes the garage door begins to shut. And he's like, Ronnie, was that you? And Ronnie starts panicking. He's like, that wasn't me. He's like, someone else is in the garage with me. And at that point, you hear Ronnie start screaming, basically, and running through the house. And Kale looks up at the window and puts his binoculars at his eyes, and he's like looking at him. And he sees Ronnie running through the house. He's like, oh, shit, he's inside. And there's just this very tense moment where you just see Ronnie screaming and running through the house, and you're just like, I don't know what's going to happen next. And Kale's like panicking because he can't leave his house. He's stuck in house arrest. But eventually he's just like, you know what? Screw it. That's my friend. I'm going over there to save him. So he grabs a baseball bat and jumps the fence and goes over to Turner's house. And his foot's beeping. It's like his alarm's blaring and everything like that. And he gets to the front door, and the front door is open. So he kind of like puts the baseball bat in there, opens the door up a little bit, and looks through. Doesn't find anything. But at that point, the cops show up. And they go to arrest Kale. And he's like screaming, he's like, my friend's in there and everything. And Turner comes out and he's just like, where's my friend? What have you done with my friend? And all that stuff like that. And again, great acting here from Shia LaBeouf. I think he does a great job at this part right here. And then as they're about to take Kale away, he's like, look in his garage. There's a body in his garage. and all the cops just kind of stop for a second. They're just like,
okay, we may have an obligation to check this out.
That's a serious allegation right there. So they're like, Mr. Turner, would you mind letting us look through your house? And he's like, be my guest. And so time passes, and they're exploring his house and everything. And eventually the garage door opens up, and the cops pull out the bag that Kayla was talking about. And they open it up, and again, Gutierrez is the cop here, and he just kind of looks up at Kayla, and he's just like, come here. He's like, you come here, look at this. So he walks over and looks in the bag, and inside the bag, there's blood, there's hair, because it's a dead deer. And so Turner's like, I hit it with my car the other day. I didn't have time to bury it. It's been a hell of a week, you know. But I was going to do that later. I just wanted to keep it till I could give it a proper burial. And so that kind of seals like the nail in Kale's coffin. He's like, you know.
Yeah, the boy who cried wolf too many times.
You cried wolf too many times now. You've broken into this man's house and everything. So they take him back over to his house. They call his mom's there and everything now. And Viola Davis' character is back again. She's like, you know, you have a court appointment at 9 o'clock in the morning and everything. And Kale's still like, my friend's still in that house. He's like, he still has Ronnie in there and everything. And meanwhile, his mom's just like, Kayla, just shut up. Stop. Just stop talking. I don't know what you're going through, but just stop. And she's like, can Mr. Turner press charges? And Viola Davis' character is like, yeah, he could, because your son broke into his house. So he potentially could. And so finally that she leaves, and Kale's mom is just like, I have to go over there and talk to him. I have to go over there and explain what happened to keep your ass out of jail, basically. Because if I don't go talk to him, he could press charges and you could wind up in jail. And so Kale's like begging her. He's like, no, don't go over there and do that. Please don't go over there. But she does it regardless. And it's at this point, Kale goes back up to his room to kind of like watch through the window again to watch his mom and everything. And of course it begins storming, because why not?
Horror movie got
a horror. So it begins to storm. And at this point, as Kale's watching his mom, he gets like a text message. And he's just like, look at your closet. Or look at your computer. I'm sorry. It says, look at your computer. And he turns around to his computer screen, and the feed from Ronnie's camera pops back up on his computer screen, and Ronnie's laying in a closet dead. And he's just like, Kale obviously panics, but then he notices something. He notices the Twinkie Tower beside Ronnie's body. And so he realizes that Ronnie is inside his own closet, not in Turner's house. So he goes to open the door, and he finds Ronnie in his closet, and Ronnie jumps up at him, and he's just like, I got you, and everything. And Kale flips out. He's like, what the fuck is wrong with you?
Dude, this is another thing where it's like you just feel this movie through Kale's eyes, because like I was mad in that moment the first time I saw this. And even when I watched it the other day, I was like, you little son of a bitch, because I kind of forgot. It's been so long since I've seen it. I kind of forgot that was like that he was in his closet, and I was like, you little fucker. Like that you fucked with me. Like that I legitimately thought you were fucked.
But I also love the way Ronnie plays it off too, because as soon as he realizes Kale's pissed about it, he's just like, I'm sorry, that was a bad joke. I understand. Like, it was like truthfully, genuinely apologetic, and I think they played it really well.
Yeah, he had a good reason too. He's like, I wasn't going to stay there. If they found me there, I would have been. I guess.
It's like, what do you want me to do? Walk out to the cops? Yeah, I broke into this guy's house.
Yeah. So it was legitimate. He had a good excuse for getting out of there and going to hide at Kale's house, because it was the closest place he could have gone for safety. Mm-hmm. You know, they didn't know anything about him. You know, that kind of thing. So
yeah,
it was good. It was well played.
It's a good scene in the movie. Yeah.
Touche, Ronnie.
Touche. So they kind of like break the tension and everything, and Kale's just like, okay, at least you're alive, you're not dead and stuck over at his house. And Ronnie's just like, what's your mom doing? And Kale's like, she's keeping me out of prison, because at this point now it's a dead deer. The club girl has left. Ronnie's no longer in his house. Once again, the slate had been washed clean for Turner. Turner is officially now just another guy that lives in the neighborhood. He's no longer a suspect of murder. So Kale's kind of just like, she's keeping my ass out of jail by going over there and talking to him. And so while that's happening, Ronnie says, hey, I'm going to go make a snack. You should watch my footage, though, because I got everything on camera. I got my Great Escape on camera. He's like, so you should play that shit and watch it. So Kale's like, yeah, okay. And at that point, Kale's mom goes into Turner's house because he answered the door, and she goes inside and starts talking to him. So while they're talking and Ronnie's making a snack, Kale decides to look at the footage. And as he's looking at it, he notices something weird. because Ronnie's running through the house and he drops the camera at one point and he picks it back up. But during the point when he drops the camera, he notices something inside the vent. And this is what we were talking about earlier, to where Kale cycles it back, goes full screen, zooms in all the way, which it wouldn't be this high quality.
No, it definitely wouldn't.
It would not have been this high quality. But he zoomed in like 500% on it and was able to see the dead club girl in the air vent. And it perfectly sums up everything where, as that happens, thunder strikes, Turner attacks Kale's mom by smashing her head in the wall. And so now, like, shit has hit the fan. Like, that's like the climax of the movie right there, is we now know 1,000% that Turner is murderer. He's murderer. We have the dead body on camera. Kale's mom's in trouble. And so Kale starts calling down for Ronnie. And I love just like the, idiocracy of Ronnie, I guess, at this point. This is another part of the moment where I'm just kind of like, this doesn't really make a whole lot of sense for me. Like, why Ronnie's just kind of like hanging out laissez-faire, just like, what are you yelling about up there? You can obviously hear he's yelling, you caught a dead girl on camera. He is a murderer. Shit's bad.
Yeah.
Yeah, but Ronnie's just got food. Like, he's got like easy cheese or like whipped cream or something in his hand. And he's just like looking at him. He's like, what are you saying? And at that point, Turner is in Kale's house and knocks Ronnie out with a baseball bat. And so Turner goes upstairs and we have this big like chase fight sequence between Turner and Kale. And I love kind of like the back and forth of this fight. I think they do a really good job with it, to where Kale's nimble and fast enough to get away from the majority of Turner's stuff. But then again, Turner also is very much stronger than him, and he's able to overpower him. Excuse me. And they fight in the kitchen, and there's a lot of like stuff getting knocked off, and Kale is trying to unplug the modem, because he's like, if that gets unplugged, the cops will come back and I'll be safe. But when that doesn't happen, Kale runs outside, tries to get across the line, but Turner stops him before he's able to do that and grabs his ankle and is just pulling him back. And eventually he pulls Kale all the way back, turns him over, and knocks him out. And after he knocks Kale out, he ties him up with tape and takes him back up to his room. And he gets to reveal his whole grand scheme now at this point. So
also, why didn't he just kill him right here? I know horror movie got a horror.
He didn't kill him because of his plan. He has to have Kale alive to write the suicide note.
That's right.
To make this all work, Turner's plan is that Kale is going to be the person who did everything here. He's going to murder his best friend. He's going to murder his mom, then kill himself because he's a depressed teenager who just snapped. He's going to kill Ronnie because, as Turner puts it, you realize your best friend was like screwing your girlfriend behind your back. And then after you killed him, we got to bring your mom over here so you can slit her throat, because she just wouldn't let you live down the guilt of killing her husband, killing your father, saying that his dad's death was on Kale there.
And Kale is just like...
I love the singular tear.
Yeah.
It's so well acted. Again, just a singular tear streaks down his cheek and everything, because he's like furious, he's pissed, he's upset. It's everything rolled into one.
Yep.
It's great. And then after he's killed Ronnie and his mom, he then is going to kill himself because he can't live with the anxiety and guilt of doing everything that he's done. So Turner tries to make him write a suicide note, basically admitting everything that he has done. And it's at this point that Ashley comes in. And Turner is distracted for like a split second. And as he's distracted, Kale's able to knock him down and escape from him. And Ashley kind of comes upstairs, and there's another grapple there where Turner is thrown over the balcony and down onto the first floor. And so Kale and Ashley run into Kale's room, and she cuts him free with scissors and everything. And they realize, we have to go over there. Kale's like, I gotta get my mom. She's in that house. I have to go save her. And Turner breaks back into the room.
I love the shining moment.
I was going to say, it's like a shining moment. Yep. Because Ashley's sitting there by the door. Door's shut and locked. And then all of a sudden, the baseball bat just bursts through the door. Yeah. So he breaks back into the room. And he's after Kale. He doesn't really care about Ashley so much. He's like, he's trying to get him. So Kale is like, he grabs her and they both run and they jump off of the roof into Ashley's pool to escape Turner. And they kind of look up at him, and at this point, Kale's like, you have to go call the cops. Go get the cops here. I have to go to his house and find my mom. So he takes the baseball bat, and they split up, and he goes over to Turner's house. And finally, we're in the scene of the crime. Like, this is the first time Kale's, like, left the house of the entire movie. And it's just a nice change of scenery.
Yeah,
even though we're in a killer's house.
Yeah, you get that, like...
You get that claustrophobic effect from the movie. You really do. It's like you're under house arrest.
Yeah, I agree. And then at this point, this is where it goes to the cop again, that Gutierrez cop.
Right, because he gets a call because he's off duty. He's eating like a cheeseburger. It's like In-N-Out or something like that he's at. And the people are like, hey, 13A or whatever his badge number is. They're like, do you still want first dibs on that kid? He jumped the fence again.
Yeah, we know you're off duty, but
do you still want it? Yeah. And he's like, yeah, I'll get to it. And he turns off his mic and he's like, when I get to it.
Yeah, like I'm going to eat first and then I'll deal with it.
Exactly.
You know?
And that's what I was saying earlier. The relationship between Kale and this cop, it sets it up perfectly for this scene here. Because he's just like, that little shithead. Again, in the same night, he's going to jump the fence twice in a row.
Yep.
So, and then he's also just like, you know what, screw it. I'm off duty. Let him, I'll catch him eventually and I'll deal with him then.
Yeah, you need to enjoy your last meal, bro. Just take your time.
I know, right? Especially, too, because he knows at this point, being the third offense, that there's no going back to Kale's house. At this point, he's taking him to jail, like 100%. There's no, we'll see you in the morning. It's no, you're going to jail right now.
Yeah, no court, anything. You're coming with me.
You're coming with me, yeah. So inside Turner's house, Kale begins to discover all kinds of things. First off, he goes through the vent and he opens it up and kind of like sticks his head in there and he pulls down the lampshade and pulls that and puts inside the vent.
Which for some reason the lamp turns into a flashlight.
Yeah, I know.
I don't know if you like. I think it's just the way they filmed it. You like see a glimpse of like a flashlight ring, and for some reason this little bulb turns into like the most like glorious light, and it's just like okay,
that doesn't make sense, but all right. But he turns it in there, and that's when he sees like all the dead bodies that are in there. And again, it gives me like the heebie-jeebies thinking about it, because if I stuck my head into some place and I turned to the side, there was just a dead body right here beside me.
Vomit everywhere.
No, thank you.
I mean, I don't really know anyone that would be like, yes, please, but still.
Yeah. But obviously he can't get through the vent. It's a small vent, so he notices a door on the other side of the room. And so he walks down the hallway between the garage and the actual house. We get this shot, horror movie, got a horror, where Turner's looking through the window that Kale doesn't notice, like
dude,
flashes,
I know.
And we see Turner outside
through like
the window.
the curtain, kind of.
So he's through the window there.
I think that's literally just like obviously a horror movie, a horror thing, but it's just like there was that reference to like The Shining. That's just like a generic slasher film reference, like. And
there's a lot of like horror movie references in this movie we haven't really talked about, like the kid on the tricycle. That's The Shining again. And everything just leading up to this moment. There's so many different references through here. I think, if I'm not mistaken, I think that the lightning and the face and everything is from Halloween.
Yeah,
I think there's a scene where Michael's looking through a window and it like not Halloween 1. I think it's one of the later ones, but he's like looking through a window and it like flashes light and you see him through it and everything. But I could be wrong. But regardless, Kale eventually finds the hidden door into Turner's like kill room, and he opens it up and it's like this surgically clean room with deep freezers all around and like surgical tables in the middle. Keep in mind also, by the way, Kale has the shears from his front yard. I forgot he picked those up and took those with him. So he's like digging through one of the ice buckets. Like, I'm like, dude, if you're looking for your mom, I wouldn't be doing that with shears, because you're going to end up stabbing someone.
Yeah, and in that room, that's whenever that white clean room. That's where you see the wig,
and the club girl's ID.
Yeah, you see all that stuff. So
and that's when he's kind of like, she never left. You realize at that point he was the one who got in that car. Also, at this time too, the cop does show up, and we get this kind of like back and forth between Kale and the cop. And the cop's walking down the hall. He's like, Mr. Turner, like calling out for everybody, and he starts hearing a bunch of like thudding. As Kale's like going through stuff in the other room, and that's when he starts walking down the hall, and we get this shot where Gutierrez is walking down the hall and Turner is behind a wall.
Yeah, behind like an upcoming corner,
exactly,
like,
behind
in the hall, and he's
corner.
like standing here.
So
it's kind of creepy.
It's kind of creepy because obviously you see the killer standing there waiting to do something, and so Gutierrez walks down the hallway and he stops perfectly waiting. He's like, he calls his dispatch and he's like, we got another break-in or whatever here at this house. And as he goes to say that, Turner jumps out and snaps his neck and kills him.
Like I said, gotta enjoy your last supper.
Gotta enjoy your last supper. And it was a burger and fries. Looked good.
Look, not my choice for a last dinner, but whatever.
You never know when your last dinner's gonna be, though.
So I should eat steak every meal.
There you go. Always prepare.
Bacon wrapped filet, breakfast, lunch, and dinner.
So Kale finally gets into the basement and starts calling out for his mom, and he hears like a muffled reply. So he's like, okay, she's definitely down here.
This is where we're talking about that like cement,
it's like a labyrinth.
dirt
It's
maze,
like
dude.
Underground cement. It's like chest high.
See, this is another thing where there's bodies down here. There's a lot of bodies down here. I really think that even though this might be like a segmented part of the house, this goes under the entire house. It's massive.
Yeah.
There would be some smell that's like coming up through the floorboards and stuff. I really think that there's like some part of this. It's just like, if you're in this house, you have to smell some type of decay or something that's just not right. Like,
well, at the same time too, though, he has that surgical room, so he's prepping these bodies. I think he truly is preserving them and like mummifying them.
Yeah, I guess.
So I guess
maybe.
There is decay, but at the same time too, they even mentioned, I think, in one of the articles that Ronnie and Ashley read earlier, that like the bodies were preserved.
Yeah.
So there wouldn't be much of a smell, if any.
Yeah, it depends on how well if he's ripping out all their insides. Who knows?
So regardless, Kale starts walking through this labyrinth, and we get probably my least favorite scene in the whole movie, because I would shit myself if this ever happened to me. I remember watching this the first time I watched this movie, and I like died inside.
This is where he fell into the water.
This is where he falls through the floor, yeah.
Yeah.
He steps on this rickety floorboard and takes another step forward and falls through the floor into like this pool of water. And as he's like laying there trying to get up out of it, a body pops up beside him, and then another body, and then another one falls on top of him, and it's just all these bodies in this water. No, thank you.
It's not even the bodies.
It's just the idea of it.
The idea of being in the water where bodies are decaying in makes me sick.
Oh, it's like the dirty water where bodies are decaying in it and everything.
It got in your mouth, in your nose, in your ears.
Thanks, I hate it.
You have dirty body water in your butthole.
Dirty body water.
In your butthole.
Oh, no. So naturally, Kale panics in this scene and he like freaks out, but he gets up out of it because he realizes, he's like, it's just dead bodies. Yeah, it's just dead bodies, but they are dead. They're not going to harm him. He's not in any kind of danger or anything.
Well, yeah, his
adrenaline movie.
kicks in, and he's like back to like, it doesn't matter what's going on. My mom is going to die. Like, I need to find her before he finds me. Like,
right.
that's the whole thing here.
So he hops up out of there and continues on down through the labyrinth, and eventually he finds her tied up in like an open, or like it's a little open area. He finds her in, and he goes to cut her down. And then again, we get another part of this movie where I don't like this part because it doesn't make sense. Like, looking at it, he shouldn't be there because he cuts his mom down and she kind of like falls back into like this darker area. And as Kale goes forward to get her, Turner brings her up. He's behind her with like a knife to her throat. And logically, I don't understand how he got there.
Yeah, the only thing I could think of is whenever Kale's navigating the maze, there's a space between like the dirt floor and then the bottom of the house where like support beams, there's like maybe 2 or 3 feet. But only thing I can think of is that he came down and then was like dirt crawling and then slipped down behind her, knowing that's where Kale was headed.
Right.
So he maybe went there and was just waiting for whenever he got there. But even so, like, there's no way that Kale wouldn't have known that he was down there.
Exactly.
So yeah, you're right. Horror movie got a
horror. Movie got a horror. But regardless, Turner's there, and they get into like kind of this like scrap because it's like he's got his mom by the throat, and he throws her away to try to fight Kale and try to get advantage of him to kill Kale. And at that moment, the mom grabs something off of the ground. It's like a screwdriver or something. I don't remember exactly what it was that she grabs.
I don't know either. It might be a screwdriver.
She grabs something sharp though and sticks it in the back of Turner's leg. And so he like screams in pain and everything, drops his knife. And at that moment, Kale takes this opportunity, opens the shears, and shoves them into Turner's chest. And I love it too because he does it with such like aggression. He's just like screaming, he shoves it into him and hits him into all these walls of the labyrinth as he's pushing him back, and then eventually just shoves him into the dead body water where he eventually like he just dies in there. And it's so poetic, he dies with his victims.
I hate it, thanks. I don't care as long as he's dead.
So yeah, Turner is avenged as he's finally killed. The danger is over, and we get this very kind of like end of Avengers moment where Kale and his mom walk out of the house, out of the garage, and like the wind's blowing in their hair and everything, and they got their arms around each other and they're holding hands, and the cops are all there and everything. So it's this very like heroic ending to the movie. But we're not done yet, because then we get one of the best movie endings ever, where it cuts to like the next day or a couple days later or something like that. Kale's getting his bracelet off. The officer's there. Viola Davis's character is there again. And
you're probably the only kid ever to have his ankle bracelet removed early
for good behavior. He's like, good behavior. And she's like, that's what I'm calling it. So he gets his ankle bracelet off. And he's able to finally, you mentioned this earlier, this is one of the things you liked a lot. He's able to finally go over to Ash's house. He lifts up the barrier and goes under it and kisses her because he can finally cross that barrier.
Yeah.
And get to her.
Yeah, and I like that, like the symbolism here, like because the idea that there's the killer in the neighborhood, obviously that's like the whole point of the story, but the whole thing where it's like, that's the obstacle keeping him from being with her, and then he's finally able to like peel that back and put that whole situation behind him and then move forward with this relationship and actually be fully invested in it.
Right.
And even so, the subtle nuances in this movie between him and her, it was always he was using that as an excuse to like hang out with her. So there was that one thing that was just holding him back. Mm-hmm. And then once that thing kind of got out of the way again, he got to proceed with being with the girl that he wanted to be with.
Exactly.
So,
and then we cut to later on, and I love this because Ashley and him are on the phone, and he's pretending to be the internet company, calling the mom next door.
Oh, this is the best.
I know.
So good.
So he's calling the mom next door for the little kids who keep throwing like water balloons at him and putting shit on his door. And he's like, yes, hello, ma'am. I was calling to... We're checking up on our adult film subscription, like subscribers. She's like, adult film? She's like, I don't watch that stuff. And he's like, well, we can see that you're currently accessing it in room 3.
Yeah, the one in the upstairs bedroom?
Yeah, the one in the downstairs bedroom. And she's like, wait, what? And so he's like, yeah, we just wanted to let you know that just checking and see how you guys were liking the channel and everything. And so she walks in the room and finds all the boys in there watching porn. She like freaks out, and Ashley and Kale are laughing their asses off. And I just love, I love how he finally got back at them like that.
Yeah, that's a great ending to the movie.
Exactly. Well, that's not the ending exactly yet, because at this point, Kale and Ashley start kissing again while Guster's one-man wrecking machine plays, which, by the way, again, fantastic song to play on this soundtrack. And we cut to another grainy camera footage, and we see Ronnie slurping out of a Coke can because he's all beat up and everything. And he like zooms in on Kale and Ashley kissing, and Kale like flips him off. And Ronnie ends the movie by saying, soon to be the most popular video on YouTube. And I love how that ends it, because, again, we've said this a million times. This is a perfect time capsule of 2007, because in 2007, that would have been a popular video on YouTube.
Yeah.
Because
guy and a girl making out.
YouTube videos in 07, 06, like back in the very early days of YouTube, were homemade movies, like homemade stuff like that, embarrassing people and doing stuff like that and everything. It wasn't like high quality movie production things that we have nowadays.
Yeah, 100%.
So I just love how much that captures 2007 to a T, because he's like soon to be the most popular video on YouTube. Nowadays, that video would get like 10 views.
If that, and it would only be the people that knew them.
Exactly. And so Ronnie zooms in the camera on them as Kale's flipping them off, and the movie cuts to black, and that is how we end Disturbia.
Yeah, great movie.
Fantastic movie. Like, honestly, I was talking to him, and you said the same thing, too. I was like, I forgot how much I loved this movie until I watched it again.
Even in 2021, still, like, it holds up. Some of the things are a little dated, like, the YouTube reference and stuff, but
the flip phones.
It's so good.
It's so good.
It still holds up so well. The drama, the suspense, the love story. It's all just really well done.
It's a great movie. Yeah, I love it.
Yeah. So one thing I didn't know about this movie, what's the guy's name that plays Mr. Turner?
Let me pull my notes back up. David Morse.
So apparently David Morse is a very, very, very strong method actor. He did not talk to the kids because
I hate that.
He did not talk to the kids at all during the filming of this show. He said that until the end of the filming, or of the movie, not the show, but until the end of the movie, whenever they filmed their last scene together, that is the first time that he actually spoke to them outside of like the table reads and things like that, because he was such a strong method actor.
That's terrifying.
Yeah, that's what I mean. Like, I was like, bruh, like this guy was, because he did a great job.
Oh,
he was so good in this movie.
And we keep harping on the fact that like the three main characters are like the best actors, but like everyone in this movie's so well acted. There's not a character in this movie that I'm like, that's an actor playing that character.
Yeah.
They are all legitimately like, I see them as that character, not as that actor.
Yep, I agree. Yeah.
So
everything that he's into is really good. He's not like a huge actor, but everything he's in has like a really good, that strong, like subtle feel to it.
Can we also talk about the fact that I hate how greasy Mr. Turner looks? He's got this white slicked back hair that's like down to like about here or so on his neck. He has a silver earring, like a silver ring earring.
Yeah, I agree. He looks super creepy.
Yeah,
but
they
like
did a great job making him look sleazy and creepy.
It looks like he's the type of guy that like he's been doing this for a while, and he knows that the only way to like continue to go to the club and pick up chicks is to try to look as young as he can, because he's definitely in his like 50s.
I was gonna say he's like 50s for sure. Yeah.
So yeah.
But yeah, I just wanted to bring that up real quick because he looks like a sleazebag.
He do be a sleazebag.
All right, Michael. So that brings us to the end of our discussion of Disturbia. But before we go, we got to talk about what everything means. So I'm gonna ask you if you had to, put what you think the overall theme or analysis of this movie would be, what do you think this movie means as a whole?
Other than like the obvious, like there's more to everything than like meets the eye. I think that it's, I don't know, like I knew you were going to ask me this question, and I really did try to prepare, but there's not like a ton of like depth to this movie. There really isn't, because like the main point of it is it's more of a like a sociological like
Horror,
the thing about like the disturbances and a what is it called, the neighborhood thing,
Suburbia.
Yeah, Suburbia. So it's like that whole situation. But I think like I said, if there's anything that you could take from this movie, it's that like not everything is what it seems.
Exactly.
So I really don't think there's really much more to glean from it than that.
I mean, I have that, but I also have to, I don't know if you'd call this a theme necessarily, but you kind of beat around the bush here on this. But the whole movie hinges on the idea of being trapped, being stuck in one place. Like you're in this rut, you can't move forward, you can't go back. It's just you're trapped. So for example, on the surface level, Kale is trapped in his house. Okay, Ashley is trapped in the suburbs away from the city. There's the dog who's trapped with the underground fence. Turner traps women in his house. He kidnaps them and traps them. So it's just this whole like idea of being stuck, and you feel like you're a prisoner in your own home, and just not being able to escape from where you are. And I think that on the surface level we have all those people, but the deeper underlying idea of this, and I didn't grow up in the suburbs. I grew up in the country. So like you've got the country, the suburbs, and the city. I did not have the suburbs. I didn't have the city. I grew up out in the woods.
Same.
But the whole idea of the suburbs is, unless you are that stereotypical middle class, nuclear family, you don't like living in the suburbs. You feel like you're stuck there, especially if you are a kid who is living there. Your goal is to get to the city. You don't want to be in the suburbs. So I think the movie kind of just encompasses that whole idea of being trapped, and the underlying meaning of it being, you are stuck where you are until you do something about it.
Yeah.
And I mean, you can either continue on in that rut or you can try to change it and make the better of it. But regardless, everyone has that feeling, no matter if you're in the city, suburbs, or country, no matter who you are, where you are, every person in their life has felt that idea of just, I'm stuck in this place.
I like that. Yeah.
So that's kind of my idea of the whole
nerd.
And I mean, it even goes into the title too, Disturbia.
Yeah.
Like the suburbs are disturbing. So
true. No, yeah, I like that. I didn't really consider that, and it's definitely true. Growing up in the country, because like I was never a country kid. You know, my dad, my brothers and sisters go hunting and stuff, and I'm like, I'm gonna play video games, and when I'm old enough, I'm getting the fuck out of here. I didn't, but I thought I was.
Yeah.
But yeah, like I definitely agree with that. I think that's a good.
So that's kind of just what I can gather. Because you're right. I think this movie, majority of it is just, you know, your straight up semi-slasher thriller horror movie with not much depth to it. But if you're going to ask me to dig a little bit deeper into it, that's what I'm able to pull from it. So let me know what you guys think in the comments below or in Discord. You guys can join that in the link below. So check that out.
Yeah, okay. I want to talk about that. I manage like the posting of the episode and stuff. I fucked that up for like for some reason, whenever you clicked on the Discord link, it took you to like a Podbean link. I fixed that. Now, if you click on the Discord link, it'll take you to the Discord, like so the Discord link should.
If you try to join the past and couldn't, try it again, because apparently he doesn't know what he's doing.
I'm an idiot. That's
he's an idiot.
From this.
All right, Michael, but before we are finished with everything, you know, we don't have a final girl. Actually, none of the kids die in this movie.
I never get final girl movies.
You've had a final girl movie before.
I know. I've had a lot of them. I've done a lot of episodes.
You've done a lot of episodes. You've had a lot of final girls. You also just get the movies too where there's not a final girl.
That's true.
But I am going to say we're going to rank Kale and Ashley. We're not going to rank Ronnie.
I like Ronnie.
I like Ronnie too. On scale
10 out of 10, Ronnie.
On scale of like comedic relief, Ronnie gets a solid S. Like Ronnie is great. He's a great side character, but also too he's not our final girl here. He gets knocked unconscious as they come back to the end of the movie. So we're going to rank Ashley and Kale because obviously Kale is our main final girl, if you want to so to say it. But we're going to put them both in there. So 2 separate rankings here, Michael.
Okay. Do you want me to
go ahead? Yeah, go for it.
So I will give Kale, I would say probably I'll give him an A. I don't want to give him an S because I think to gain the tier of an S, I think that you need to have a challenge that you overcome. I think your personality and your not only your physical challenges and what's facing, but you're also your personal challenges and your personality and your psychological challenges. I think you need to overcome all of those things. The movie sets you up with a psychological trauma and an actual trauma that he experiences, and it plateaus that and replaces it with something else. I don't think there's ever a moment where the movie sets you up for him really getting over his father's death. I think that it just kind of plateaus on the fact that there's something else there, something to distract him, something else.
He replaces it with something else.
Exactly. Yeah. And I don't necessarily think that that's healthy, and I think that, you know, later on that could probably come back to bite, you know, someone like that. And those are just the idea of him overcoming that challenge in his life. The thing that makes like a good final girl is like the trauma that they face. They overcome that trauma as symbolizing, or they overcome whatever that physical situation is in a way that symbolizes them overcoming their emotional trauma or whatever makes them a good, deep character. So I don't think he has that, but he's a badass. He's funny. He's interesting. The story arc is great. He saves the day and he gets the girl. He's got great friends and he wins. And I don't think you can give him anything less than an A, honestly.
Absolutely. I agree completely. Before you get to Ashley, I'll go ahead and just rank Kale here too. Because I was torn. I was like, holy shit, I might actually give him an S here. Because you're right. He's got a great character. He's got great development. He's a badass. He does what he needs to do. My only reason for ranking him, he's just right under an S for me. He's in an A, very high tier A. And I think what you just said is perfect. I think I like that reasoning that you just said. But also, too, I'm knocking him down just slightly because he stalks Ashley in the beginning of the film.
He do be a weirdo.
He, you know, it's to be an S tier final girl, in my opinion. It's not that you have to be flawless, but you have to have characteristics that make you likable throughout the entire film. Someone watching this movie can easily watch this and be like, he's a little pervert. He's gross. He's creepy because he's watching his neighbor. And I don't think that obviously knocks you down from S tier quality. So I'm ranking him as an A, but only because I think some people can look at him and be like, he's a perv. So he's gross for stalking his neighbor like that. So that's why I'm knocking him down.
I could see that.
Yeah. But I also like the idea too that he never overcame his father's death. He replaced his father's death with the death of other people. And this obsession with his neighbor to stalk him and figure out what the hell's going on at his house. So yeah. I like your description too. So high A for me as well. Now, what about Ashley?
I don't have a lot to go on though, because like you think about like everything that he went through, and then you look at like the only little bit of like quote unquote character development you get from her is what happened with her and Turner in the car, and also what happened between her and her dad.
Yeah.
So she doesn't get the brunt of this. She gets a little bit of it. I don't know. I can't really give her anything more than like maybe a C. And it's just because it's like I don't have anything to knock her down because she handles everything as well as she can. She's logical about the situation, especially whenever Turner approaches her. She makes the point, you know, he's in the clear. Like, we don't have anything on this guy.
Right.
And she knows when to back off, all those. So there's like, those are the pluses for her, but her character development, she doesn't get anywhere with her family. She doesn't really handle the whole thing about her being stalked in the window healthily. She's anything like that. So I can't really give her anything other than like a C, maybe just because she's relatively mediocre and she handles some things great and other things kind of poorly.
I feel like I'm just repeating after you, but I agree completely. She's a straight up solid C like tier for me because you're right. There's not a whole lot of development to her. I mean, you get a little bit of backstory, but at the same time, she's very logical. She's very smart with the things that she does. She's able to talk Kale into like, you know, maybe we shouldn't be doing this anymore. Maybe we should back off from this. But my reason for her just being like a solid C is that she never gets to be that final girl. Like that Kale takes that position. So I'm putting her on this list though, because I think truthfully, she does encounter Turner enough to where she classifies. I would say Ronnie does too, but also at the same time, Ronnie very much is not meant to be the final girl. Ronnie is meant to be the fool. We look back at like the Cabin in the Woods. Ronnie is the fool character, and I would not say Ashley is the cheerleader.
Right, I agree.
I don't think she is. I think she
might be the scholar in this situation.
She might be the scholar, but I honestly think that both her and Kale have that final girl quality, and that's why I'm putting her on this list as well. But because she never goes to Turner's house and breaks in, like does the final girl circuit, she doesn't deserve anything higher than a C. So I agree completely with that.
Gotcha. And if this was Cabin in the Woods, we better hope another country got this right because this is fucked. So
yeah, we lost because everyone lived, no one died,
other than the cop, and that was a bystander.
Yeah. Well, and the killer.
That's true.
So
lame.
Lame. All right, guys. Well, that's all that I have for you this episode on the Final Girl Podcast. Thank you guys so much for listening and watching. Michael,
are we gonna play trivia?
We are gonna play. I forgot all about that. I was just thinking. I wasn't even thinking about that. We are gonna play trivia. I'm glad I've got this.
Ew.
So, for those of you guys listening, you might want to go onto YouTube and watch this part of the things because we're gonna real quickly here. I don't want to take too much time because I know this episode's gone on for a while.
That's fine. If you're this far into it, you can stay around for another 5 seconds.
All right, so we're going to play some horror movie trivia. For those of you guys who don't know, what this is I just ask Michael some questions about horror movies. If he gets it right, great. If he gets it wrong, he has to do something gross. And I'm doing this now because we have video now, so you guys can watch this on YouTube and see him do this. What I have here... It's warm now, by the way. Keep that in mind. It was cold when I bought it, so it's going to be even worse probably.
Thanks, I ate it.
It's a health shot. And some people might be like, oh, that's great. But these things are notorious for being gross.
It doesn't look good. It
doesn't
looks
look
like
good. It's
baby vomit.
It's turmeric, like probiotic turmerics and everything.
It looks orange, but that's because the label's orange, and it has an orange tint to it. But it also
it's like neon yellow.
It looks. I have a daughter who's 2, and it looks like a diaper.
Stop. I know.
It honestly like has the same consistency of a diaper. So if you could make the question easier, that'd be fantastic.
Ew. So I'm going to ask you 3 questions, Michael. If you can get 2 out of 3 right, I'll take that shot.
Okay. Are they going to get harder as they go on?
Potentially.
Oh, great. Okay.
But if you do not get 2 out of 3, you have to take that shot. So here we go. I'll start off pretty easy. Okay. What classic horror movie was originally titled The Babysitter Murders?
Halloween?
It was Halloween.
Hey.
There you go. It was Halloween.
You know, I've never seen the original Halloween.
Have you not? No. What are you doing with your life?
I saw one of the one of the remakes or something, or one of the later ones. I don't know, and I was like, lame.
You're missing out because the original Halloween is actually fantastic. I think you need to watch that, and then the other ones. So 1 and 2 are good. 3 is completely different than the first 2. 3, because the original idea of Halloween was to be an anthology, kind of like how American Horror Story is. So they were all going to be different. Michael Myers was only supposed to be in the first Halloween, then never back again. But people loved him so much they brought him back for 2. Then they're like, okay, no, he's actually dead now. We're going on to the next story, and people hated it, so they brought him back. So 4 through like 6 are trash.
Would 3 have been great if they hadn't have called it Halloween?
Yes. If they called it if they just called it Season of the Witch and got rid of the Halloween moniker, it would have been fantastic. So I like Halloween 3, Season of the Witch. I think it's a good movie.
Maybe because you realize that.
Yeah, I also realized too it's not meant to be Michael Myers.
Yeah.
So
Gotcha.
All right, next one. What horror film was the first movie to show a woman in just a bra and slip?
Alien?
I'm going to give you some choices. Hold on.
Okay.
No, that's not true. No.
Well, you don't see
Alien.
her in a bra anyway. You see her in a tank top and underwear.
And I feel like me giving you choices is going to make this so easy for you.
Well, if I get if I get it right, I don't have to take
If you get it right, you don't have to take that right.
Okay. Well, I haven't seen. I literally just said I haven't seen Halloween, so this might make it. This might not be as easy for me as you think.
Is it The Bride of Frankenstein, The Haunting, Dracula, or Psycho?
I don't know. I've never seen any of those movies.
You're missing out on some of them.
All right. I'm going to regret this. Is it The Haunting?
It is not.
Oof.
It is Psycho.
I thought that
Psycho is the first time.
So only reason I didn't pick Psycho is because I know that's a really old movie, and I just assumed that they didn't show that in that movie. But
nope, they did.
Okay.
Yep. All right. So you need to get this next one right, and you're not going to get this next one right.
Okay.
I'll make this a 50-50 choice for you.
No.
Okay.
Give it to me. Give it to me straight.
All right. How many people associated with The Exorcist died during production?
13.
Was it 3, 6, or 9?
9.
It was 9.
Ah, get wrecked, motherfucker!
Yeah,
should have taken the 13.
People like claim that movie was cursed because of the fact that so many people died during production.
I don't necessarily think that's not true. I mean, a lot of people might have died in production for like random reasons, but at the same time, they were dealing with some weird stuff back then, you know?
I don't even want to smell it. I
don't want to
shoot it.
Can I smell it?
Yeah.
Oh, fuck.
God, don't do that. No.
That smells like...
I smell it now.
That smells like baby feet and sadness. I'm so sorry.
Baby feet and sadness.
Good luck, my friend.
I got a little bit of Red Bull left. Whew, all
Chug,
right.
chug,
It's healthy
chug,
for me,
chug,
right? It's
chug,
good for
chug,
me.
chug, chug, chug.
All right.
Chug, chug,
Sláinte.
chug, chug. It even looks like.
Why is it spicy? Why is it spicy?
I have like a headache because I'm laughing so hard.
Ugh.
Hey man, it's okay. You have live probiotics, which means there's now like weird bacteria swimming in your throat that you just killed with Red Bull.
Yes.
But you have immunity defense now. Yeah.
It's not the worst thing I've ever had, but I definitely did not like that.
It did not smell good in the slightest.
No. So that's our show, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you guys for listening, Michael. Thank you for being here. I appreciate it. Always a good time whenever you're on the show.
Of course. I love being here.
Yep. I was going to say, tell the people where they can find you on the internet, but you're on here so often, they know where to find you.
Yeah, you don't need to find me.
You don't need to find
I'll find
them.
you.
No one wants them. Okay, easy there, Shia LaBeouf.
Shy surprise.
Shy surprise. I love that video. 13 Palm Trees Podcast Productions, guys. They bring you this show. They bring you other great shows like D&D Kinda, Video Game Mythos, and Gurus of Gaming. Go check them out wherever you get your podcasts. If you guys want to know more about the show, you can find us on Facebook.com/FinalGirlPodcast, Instagram @FinalGirlPodcast, the Discord in the link below, now finally fixed, thanks to you. And if you want to support the show, guys, check us out on Patreon.com/FinalGirlPodcast. Just $1 will get you supporting the show. We appreciate every dollar we get. $5 will get you access to Movie of the Month, which we're actually going to have again here soon. We're going to have an in-person one, but for those who can't join us, we'll still stream it the best we can. But I'm excited for the in-person Movie of the Month.
That'll be fun.
It's going to be fun. So
that may be weird for some people, but again, like we know that there's people who listen all over the country. If you support us on Patreon and you, like I said, you don't want to make the track to watch a movie with us, it might be weird showing up with a bunch of people you don't know.
Exactly.
Like I said, we're going to stream
we're
it.
still going to stream it, yeah. So you
we'll
guys
still,
can join.
We'll still make sure we can talk to you guys and get you involved in whatever we're doing. So.
Absolutely. So once again, thank you guys so much for listening. I appreciate it. Michael, thank you again for being here. Of course. The third time I've said this now. All right, guys. Until next time. Take it easy.
Look, movies like this end when the final girl kills the main bad guy and the credits roll.